Okay. Sorry, people decided to blow up my phone all at the same moment. It looks like we only have one person here anyway. So that's okay. So for the one person that's here, we're not going to read just yet. I'm going to wait until more people show up. But tonight we are reading, wait for it. We're going to read the one at the bottom. Carmilla. I don't know if it's focusing enough. It's not. Well, we're reading Carmilla. I already have it marked in the book. And this book was given to me as an early birthday present. Oh, hey! Hi, Cece. Hi, Layla. And speaking of the birthday present, the person who gave it to me is here. Layla. Oh, and Jerem's here too. Oh, nice. Good. Glad you guys are playing together. But yes, welcome. Shout out to all of these people. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this for all of them. Let's see. Start with CC. And then we'll do... Jerem, do you stream? I'm shouting you out anyway, just because I like you. Why not? Shout everybody out. Just everybody. But Cece, she does some gaming in her streams. She plays a lot of interesting, spooky games. She's a nice lady that I've known for a really long time. Layla, you need to stream so that I can actually shout you out. Okay, good, you do. Good. Then that was a good shout out. Jerem's just amazing. I'm a big fan of him. He's so sweet. And he knows everybody that I know, which is amazing. So I guess my thing is not updating at all. Maybe I should refresh it. It still says I only have one viewer, which is obviously not true. Give it a second, maybe. Now you're just going to straight lie to me, aren't you? Oh, thank you, all of the emotes. Oh, I love you guys. You guys are so sweet. So sorry if my voice is a little quiet tonight. I have a scratchy throat. OBS does that, yeah. It's doing that on the stream manager too, for some reason. Oh wait, there we go. Finally updated. That took a while. Yeah, I shouldn't pay attention to it. I only kind of pay attention to decide when I should actually start reading, because I don't want to start when there's only one or two people in here and then a bunch of people show up maybe a minute later. I like to give people a chance to show up, because I've started too soon a couple of times and then had to go over what I just read, because I don't want people to miss anything. And people are still blowing up my phone. They need to stop that. Whoever is texting me, please stop that. You know I'm live. No, don't lose my place. That's fair, understandable. Thank you, everybody. But there's enough people here that I can get started. So, let's hope this I have this tiny little bookmark that very easily falls out, because all of my nice big ones are being used on other books. Because I'm reading 2 or 3 books at the same time. So, for some reason, they put Carmilla at the back of the book, so we're kind of reading backwards. And it actually seems pretty short. Maybe we'll be able to do this in one night. That would be interesting. So let's see. I'm pretty sure this should be the original text. It should be. It may not, but I don't see any... Yeah, I'm not seeing any copyright claims by anybody condensing the text, because I was running into that a lot with Frankenstein, trying to find a copy that didn't have condensed text, which I do have a copy of it, but can't read that here. Okay, so prologue. Oh, and I don't know if anybody watches Castlevania, but I love that version of Carmilla. She's a fun time. I love her dress. So upon a paper attached to the narrative which follows, Dr. Helicius, there we go. Hesselius. We're getting tripped up right in the first sentence. Hesselius, there we go, has written a rather elaborate note, which he accompanies with a reference to his essay on the strange subject of the MS Illuminates. Or is it Illuminates? It's probably Illuminates. That's the unfortunate thing about the English language, is everything is spelled the same and spoken completely different. See, I've been wanting to start Castlevania, just never got the chance to. I highly recommend it. It's a fun anime. Oh, good evening, Spectre. It's nice to see you. Yes, we're all having a lovely time here, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm just fumbling over the beginning of this book. We're starting strong today. Yeah, I think that's the Illuminates, not fucking Illuminates. Even though it's spelled the same. But whatever. English, yay. This mysterious subject he treats, in that essay, with his usual learning and acumen, and with remarkable directness and condensation. It will form but one volume of the series of that extraordinary man's collected papers. Man, my throat is already so scratchy. Oh, thank you. And yes, it is a good watch. And thank you, Cece. I'm going through a lot right now, so my mind's not in the best place, but reading is fun. As I publish the case in this volume simply to interest the lady, I shall forestall the intelligent lady who relates it in nothing, and after due consideration, I have determined, therefore, to abstain from presenting any precise of the learned doctor's reasoning, or extract from his statement on a subject which he describes as involving, not improbably, some of the profoundest arcana of our dual existence and its intermediates. I was anxious, on discovering this paper, to reopen the correspondence commenced by Dr. Hesselius. There we go, we got it that time. So many years before, with a person so clever and careful as his informant seemed to have been. Much to my regret, however, I found that she had died in the interval. She probably could have added little to the narrative which she communicates in the following pages, with, so far I can pronounce, such conscientious particularity. Here we go. This is going to be a fun read already, I can tell. Then I should just get a bunch of books in German and read those. But I hope everyone's doing well tonight. An Earthly Fright, Chapter 1. In Styria, we, though by no means magnificent people, inhabit a castle, or schloss. A small income in that part of the world goes a great way. 800 or 900 a year does wonders. Scantily enough, ours would have answered among wealthy people at home. Sorry, my cat's jumping around upstairs. My father is English, and I bear an English name, although I never saw England. But here, in this lonely and primitive place, where everything is so marvelously cheap, I really don't see, however, so much more money would at all materially add to our comforts, or even luxuries. My father was in the Austrian service, and retired upon a pension, and his patrimony? Trimony. I don't know. And purchased this feudal residence, and the small estate on which it stands, a bargain. Nothing can be more picturesque or solitary. It stands on a slight eminence in a forest. That sounds lovely. The road, very old and narrow, passes in front of its drawbridge, never raised in my time, and its moat, stocked with perch, and sailed over by many swans, and floating on the surface white fleets of water lilies. Oh my goodness, that does sound beautiful. Over all this, the Schloss shows its many-windowed front, its towers, and its Gothic chapel. That does sound great. Let's live there. I want to live there. The forest opens in the irregular and very picturesque glade before its gate, and at the right, a steep Gothic bridge carries the road over a stream that winds in deep shadow through the wood. I've said that this is a very lonely place. Judge whether I say truth. Looking from the hall doors toward the road, the forest in which our castle stands extends 15 miles to the right and 12 to the left. The nearest inhabited village is about 7 of your English miles to the left. The nearest inhabited Schloss of any historic associations is that of old General Spieldorf, nearly 20 miles away to the right. I've said the nearest inhabited village, because there is only 3 miles westward. That is to say, in the direction of General Spielsdorf's. Spielsdorf? Schloss. A ruined village. It's a weird name, Spielsdorf. With its quaint little church, now roofless, in the aisle of which are the mouldering tombs of the proud family Karnstein, now extinct, who once owned the equally desolate chateau which, in the thick of the forest, overlooks the silent ruins of the town. Respecting the cause of the desertion of this striking and melancholy spot, there is a legend which I shall relate to you another time. No, relate to us now. I must tell you now how very small is the party who constitute the inhabitants of our castle. I don't include servants, or those dependents who occupy rooms in the buildings attached to the Schloss. Listen and wonder. My father, who is the kindest man on earth, but growing old, and I, at the date of my story, only 19. 8 years have passed since then. This person is younger than me at this point. I feel old. And my father constituted the family at the Schloss. My mother, a steering lady, died in my infancy. But I had a good-natured governess who had been with me from, I might almost say, my infancy. I could not remember the time when her fat face was not a familiar picture in my memory. That's terrible. Oh my, this is starting off great. Maybe the anime of Castlevania got Carmilla down quite right. This was Madame Peridon, a native of Berna. It sounds like Berner, but it's Berna. whose care and good nature now in part supplied to me the loss of my mother, whom I do not even remember, so early I lost her. She made a third at her little dinner party. There was a fourth, Mademoiselle de... I want to get this name right. LaFontaine? LaFontaine. I don't know. A lady such as you term, I believe, a finishing governess. She spoke French and German, which is really hard. I have to stop for a second. French and German together, very hard to learn. German is my kind of second language. I got a bit rusty because I haven't used it in a decade. But I tried adding French in with my German because I wanted to learn German, Japanese, French, and then a little bit of Spanish if I could handle it. And it's tough. It's tough doing French lessons right after doing German lessons because with German, you pronounce every letter you see. You see a letter, you say it. With French, you don't. You pronounce maybe a third of what you see. It's complicated. You have to stop your mouth mid-sound for French. And then German, you have to continue past what you think you should pronounce. If that makes any sense. But both languages are lovely in their own way. So, she spoke French and German, Madame Perdon French, and broken English. To which my father and I added English, which, partly to prevent its becoming a lost language among us, and partly from patriotic motives, we spoke every day. The consequence was a babble, at which strangers used to laugh, and which I shall make no attempt to reproduce in this narrative. And there were 2 or 3 young lady friends, besides, pretty nearly of my own age, who were occasional visitors, for longer or shorter terms. And these visits I sometimes returned. Oh, how sweet, how gracious of you. To, acknowledge your friends. Still, I already like this character way more than Victor Frankenstein, who was just such a whiny boy. So whiny. These were our regular social resources. But of course there were chance visits from neighbors, which the book has in quotations, of only 5 or 6 leagues distance. My life was, notwithstanding, rather a solitary one, I can assure you. My gouvernantes had... That's really what it says. That sounds so fancy. Had just so much control over me, as you might conjecture, such sage persons would have in the case of a rather spoiled girl, whose only parent allowed her pretty nearly her own way in everything. Explains a lot. Which, welcome to the other people that just showed up. I see you. We're reading Carmilla. And we only just started. You didn't miss anything. The first occurrence in my existence, which produced a terrible impression upon my mind, which, in fact, never has been effaced, was one of the very earliest incidents of my life which I can recollect. Some people will think it so trifling, and that it should not be recorded here. You will see, however, by and by, why I mention it. The nursery, as it was called, though I had it all to myself, was a large room in the upper story of the castle, with a steep oak roof. I can't have been more than 6 years old, when one night I woke, and looking round the room from my bed, failed to see the nursery maid. Neither was my nurse there, and I thought myself alone. I was not frightened, for I was one of those happy children who are studiously kept in ignorance of ghost stories, of fairy tales, and of such lore that makes us cover up our heads when the door cracks suddenly, or the flicker of an expiring candle makes the shadow of the bedpost dance upon the wall, nearer to our faces. I was vexed and insulted at finding myself, as I conceived, neglected, and I began to whimper. Preparatory to a hearty bout of roaring, when to my surprise I saw the solemn but very pretty face looking at me from the side of the bed. It was that of a young lady who was kneeling, with her hands under the coverlet. I looked at her with a kind of pleased wonder and ceased whimpering. She caressed me with her hands and lay down beside me on the bed and drew me towards her smiling. I felt immediately delightfully soothed and fell asleep again. You just trust this strange woman? Oh, you innocent child. I was wakened by a sensation as if 2 needles ran into my breast very deep at the same moment, and I cried loudly. The lady started back, with her eyes fixed on me, and then slipped down upon the floor, and, as I thought, hid herself under the bed. No, that's not a very good hiding place. That's always the first place people check. Oh, and just a warning to the people that might look at the channel currency. I guess mine is the fucks given section. There are some sound that you can redeem, but they don't work during the reading, so I just wanted to let you know ahead of time, if you try to redeem it on a sound, it's not going to work during this kind of stream, but it will work during the gaming streams and drawing if I ever get around to it. So I don't want you to waste your points, because I don't want loud sounds to play while people might be trying to fall asleep. I was now for the first time frightened, and I yelled with all my might and main. Nurse, nursery maid, housekeeper, all came running in, and hearing my story, they made light of it, soothing me all they could. Meanwhile, but child as I was, I could look under the bed, and about the room, and peep under the tables, and pluck open cupboards, and the housekeeper whispered to the nurse, "Lay your hand along that hollow in the bed. Someone did lie here, and so sure as you did not, the place is still warm." Yeah, she's under the bed, and my cat is in the room. Xaba. Xaba? I hope that's my cat. I don't need a lady vampire in here. Actually, yes, I do. It would be a good time to get bitten right now while I still have youth. I remember the nursery maid petting me, and all 3 examining my chest, where I told them I felt the puncture, and pronouncing that there was no sign visible that any such thing had happened to me. The housekeeper and the 2 other servants, who were in charge of the nursery, remained sitting up all night, and from that time a servant always sat up in the nursery until I was about 14. My goodness, can you imagine people watching you sleep every night? It's weird. And this isn't during a time where there's smartphones or tablets or anything that you can amuse yourself with. They're just sitting there, watching you. It's creepy. Let's see. I was very nervous for a long time after this. A doctor was called in. He was pallid and elderly. How well I remember his long, saturnine, I don't know what that word is, or what it means, but it's talking about his face. Slightly pitted with smallpox. Oh no. And you let that man in? And his chestnut wig. For a good while, every second day, he came, and gave me medicine, which of course I hated, as a child would. I always assumed you watched people sleep. You definitely had the eyes for ominous leering. Okay, actually you weren't wrong. Oh, hello, Prometheus. Hold on, let me give you a quick shout out. Quick shout out. I'm getting better at this. Why is it not? There we go. Now it is. There we go. There's another streamer there. Another good friend of mine who is amazingly kind. Oh, you just got home. Good, good. Well, welcome home. I'm not actually in your home, but I'm welcoming you to your home. If that makes sense. But thank you so much for coming by. We just started Carmilla. So this girl fell asleep in her bed and naively just saw this lady in her room, and the lady came up and embraced her in her bed, and she was okay with it. She just fell asleep, and then she got bit, and now we're dealing with the aftermath. Such innocence. It's adorable. But yes, to continue with what I was telling you, Layla, yes, I do watch people sleep. Not in a creepy way, but if I'm staying over someone's house and we're kind of in the same room, or, you know, if I have a partner that's sleeping next to me, if I think they're going to have a nightmare, I do kind of, I don't stare at a person, but I kind of keep an eye on them, you know? I don't like when people have nightmares, because I have a lot. But I have trouble sleeping a lot, so I just kind of make sure other people sleep well. You say this as I'm laying in bed with my windows open and everything. Oh yes. I might have to creep into your house. I won't do that. But it's fitting to the theme, isn't it? I even have my red contacts in. The morning after I saw this apparition, excuse me, I was in a state of terror and could not bear to be left alone. Daylight though it was, for even a moment. My goodness, you poor thing. I mean, was it really so bad? The lady just hugged you and bit you a little. I mean, it might have been a little painful for a child, but it was just a little nibble. It wasn't that bad. I remember my father coming up and standing at the bedside, and talking cheerfully, and asking the nurse a number of questions, and laughing very heartily at one of the answers, and patting me on the shoulder, and kissing me, and telling me not to be frightened, that it was nothing but a dream, and could not hurt me, other than biting me, but okay. But I was not comforted, for I knew the visit of the strange woman was not a dream, and I was awfully frightened. I was a little consoled by the nursery maid's assuring me that it was she who had come and looked at me, and lain down beside me on the bed, and that I must have, half dreaming, not to have known her face. Okay, but did she bite you? But this, though supported by the nurse, did not quite satisfy me. I remembered, in the course of that day, a venerable old man in a black cassock coming into the room with the nurse and housekeeper, and talking a little to them, and very kindly to me. His face was very sweet and gentle, and he told me that they were going to pray, and joined my hands together, and desired me to say softly while they were praying, "Lord, hear all good prayers for us, for Jesus' sake." I think these were the very words, for I often repeated them to myself, and my nurse used for years to make me say them in my prayers. No comment. I remembered so well the thoughtful, sweet face of that white-haired old man in his black cassock, as he stood in that rude, lofty brown room, with the clumsy furniture of a fashion 300 years old about him, and the scanty light entering its shadowy atmosphere through the small lattice. He kneeled, and the 3 women with him, and he prayed aloud with an earnest, quavering voice, for what appeared to me a long time. I forgot all my life preceding that event, and for some time after it is all obscure also. But the scenes I have just described stand out vivid as the isolated pictures of the phantasmagoria surrounded by darkness. Chapter 2. A Guest. This book is heavy. It's very heavy on my left hand. I'm now going to tell you something so strange that it will require all of your faith in my veracity to believe my story. It is not only true, nevertheless, but truth of which I have been an eyewitness. It was a sweet summer evening, and my father asked me, as he sometimes did, to take a little ramble with him along the beautiful forest vista, which I have mentioned as lying in front of the Schloss. General Spieldorf cannot come to us so soon as I had hoped, said my father as we pursued our walk. Sorry, my contact is migrating, so I'm having my pace is a little messed up. I think I might have to get a new pair. He was to have paid us a visit of some weeks, and we had expected his arrival the next day. He was to have brought with him a young lady, his niece and ward, Mademoiselle Rheinfeldt, that's a nice name, whom I had never seen, but whom I had heard described as a very charming girl, and of whose society I had promised myself many happy days. I was more disappointed than a young lady living in a town or a bustling neighborhood can possibly imagine. This visit and the new acquaintance promised had furnished my daydream for many weeks. And how soon does he come? I asked. Not till autumn. Not for 2 months, I dare say, he answered. And I am very glad now, dear, that you never knew Mademoiselle Rheinfeldt. And why? I asked, both mortified and curious. Because the poor young lady is dead, he replied. I quite forgot I had not told you, but you were not in the room when I received the General's letter this evening. Oh. I was very much shocked. General Spielsdorf had mentioned in his first letter, 6 or 7 weeks before, that she was not so well as he would wish her, but there was nothing to suggest the remotest suspicion of danger. Here's the General's letter, he said, handing it to me. I'm afraid he is in great affliction. The letter appears to me to have been written very nearly in distraction. We sat down on a rude bench under a ground of magnificent lime trees. The sun was setting with all its melancholy splendor behind the sylvan horizon, and the stream that flows beside our home and passes under the steep old bridge I have mentioned wound through many groups of noble trees, almost at our feet, reflecting in its current the fading crimson of the sky. General Spielsdorf's letter was so extraordinary, so vehement, my eyes, and in some places so self-contradictory, that I read it twice over, the second time aloud to my father, and was still unable to account for it, except by supposing that grief had unsettled his mind. It said, I have lost my darling daughter, for as such I loved her during the last days of dear Bertha's illness, I was not able to write to you. Before I had no idea of her danger. I've lost her, and now learn all too late. She died in the peace of innocence, and in the glorious hope of a blessed futurity. The fiend who betrayed our infatuated hospitality has done it all. I thought I was receiving into my house innocence, gaiety, and a charming companion for my lost Bertha. Heavens, what a fool I have been. Thank God my child died without a suspicion of the cause of her sufferings. She is gone without so much as conjecturing the nature of her illness, and the accursed passion of the agent of all this misery. I devote my remaining days to tracking and extinguishing a monster. I am told I may hope to accomplish my righteous and merciful purpose. At present there is scarcely a gleam of light to guide me. I really hope you didn't hear my stomach gargle just then. I haven't eaten much today, so you might hear my stomach. Sorry ahead of time. I curse my conceited incredulity, my despicable affection of superiority, and my blindness, my obstinacy, all too late. I cannot write or talk collectedly now. I am distracted. Well, that would fit the statement from before. So soon as I shall have a little recovered, I mean to devote myself for a time to enquiry, which may possibly lead me as far as Vienna. Sometime in the autumn, I did read it right. 2 months hence, or earlier, if I live, I will see you, that is, if you permit me. I will then tell you all that I scarce dare upon paper now. Farewell. Pray for me, dear friend. Oh, this poor guy. Let's refill my drink real quick. Try and mark this. Do not fall out, do not fall out. Okay. Thankfully, we don't have to get up to refill. There we go. At least the story kind of gets straight to it. You skip dinner as well? Well, for me, I guess it would be more breakfast or lunch. I don't know. I woke up around 4 today. 4 p.m. If my stomach gets too loud, let me know, and I will quickly grab something just to shut it up. I don't want it to be too much of a distraction. Okay. Back to the story. I'm loving how it kind of gets, like I was saying before, kind of gets straight into it. Though Frankenstein is a great story, it paints beautiful pictures of nature, which this story does as well, but it lingers on Victor's past a lot and how great his life was. And I would have appreciated less time with Victor and more time with other characters. Like, tell me more about Walton. I mean, yeah, they told us a fair amount, but I would have rather heard about his past than Victor's, because Victor is a whiny punk. We're not reading that. We're reading Carmilla. See, you should probably quickly grab something for your own sake. I feel fine. I just don't want my stomach to get loud. That's the only thing I care about. If my stomach is loud, I'll grab something. But if it's not being picked up by the mic, then I'm not concerned. I'm actually, if you can see it, I'm wearing a corset right now, so I can't really feel my stomach. So I'd rather not eat something with a corset on. It's best to wait till after. Anyway, back to reading. In these terms ended this strange letter. Though I had never seen Bertha Reinfeldt, in my eyes filled with tears at the sudden intelligence. I was startled, as well as profoundly disappointed. I would too. That sounds so lonely and so sad. The sun had now set, and it was twilight by the time I had returned the general's letter to my father. I keep hearing my cat. You should eat, though. I promise I will. Again, just let me know if my stomach gets loud, and I'll eat something, but otherwise, I'll wait. I'll wait till after the stream. I had a rice cracker beforehand. 2 packs of rice crackers. So I did eat something. It just wasn't hugely substantial. It was a soft, clear evening, and we loitered, speculating upon the possible meanings of the violent and incoherent sentences which I had just been reading. I hear you. What's this? You know what? That may be a mouse. And a mouse is not going to come to me if I call it. We had nearly a mile to walk before reaching the road that passes the Schloss in front, and by that time the moon was shining brilliantly. At the drawbridge we met Madame Perrodon, and Mademoiselle, oh my goodness, you're going to make me say it again, de la Fontaine, who had come out, without their bonnets, to enjoy the exquisite moonlight. Oh, I understand that. I had frozen grapes. I've never tried frozen grapes. I keep hearing that they're delicious, though, but I have not tried them yet. We heard their voices gabbling in animated dialogue as we approached. We joined them at the drawbridge and turned about to admire with them the beautiful scene, as you should. The glade through which we had just walked lay before us. At our left, the narrow road wound away under the clumps of lordly trees, and was lost to sight amid the thickening forest. At the right, the same road crosses the steep and picturesque bridge, that Gothic bridge that I'm so jealous of, near which stands a ruined tower, which once guarded that pass, and beyond the bridge an abrupt eminence rises, covered with trees, and showing in the shadows some gray ivy-clustered rocks. Ah, wonderful. They are so yummy, really. I'll have to try them at some point. Do you prefer green grapes, red grapes, or black grapes? What's your favorite kind of grape? I also haven't tried those cotton candy grapes yet, but I am curious. They sound terrible, though. Over the sward and low grounds, a thin film of mist was stealing like smoke, marking the distances with a transparent veil. And here and there we could see the river faintly flashing in the moonlight. No softer, sweeter scent could be imagined. The news I had just heard made it melancholy, but nothing could disturb its character of profound serenity, and the enchanted glory and vagueness of the prospect. Fermented grapes? Ha ha ha. I enjoy them too. Not often. I actually prefer to cook with them, but you get my meaning. Madame Perrodon was... oh my goodness. I think I skipped, and that sentence was terrible, so we'll get back to that. Let's see, I get the red grapes and put them in the freezer. I like the red ones too. The cotton candy grapes aren't that bad. I enjoy them, but after a while they taste like plain grapes. I like all grapes, but I find the red grapes the best frozen. Nice. I tend to like the red ones and the black ones. For some reason, I don't really like green anymore, and I don't know why. But the stems have to still be green. If they start turning brown and getting dry, I won't eat the grapes. I don't know why, but yeah, the grapes have to be very firm, or I don't like them anymore. My father, who enjoyed the picturesque, and I stood looking in silence over the expanse beneath us. The two good governesses, standing a little way behind us, discoursed upon the scene, and were eloquent upon the moon. Madame Perrodon was fat. Yep, she says it. Middle-aged and romantic, and talked and sighed poetically. Mademoiselle de la Fontaine, in right of her father who was a German, assumed to be philosophical, metaphysical, and something of a mystic, now declared that when the moon shone with a light so intense, it was well known that it indicated a special spiritual activity. The effect of the moon in such a state of brilliancy was manifold. I acted on dreams. It acted on lunacy. It acted on nervous people. It had marvelous physical influences connected with life. Mademoiselle related that her cousin, who was mate of a merchant ship, having taken a nap on deck on such a night, lying on his back, with his face full in the light on the moon, had wakened after a dream of an old woman clawing him by the cheek, with his features horribly drawn to one side, and his face had never quite recovered its equilibrium. The moon this night, she said, is full of idyllic and magnetic influence. And see, when you look behind you, at the front of the Schloss, how all its windows flash and twinkle, with that silvery splendor, as if unseen hands had lighted up the rooms to receive fairy guests. We're going into fairies now. Oh, hello, X-Ray. It's good to see you, and welcome. We just started reading Carmilla, which seems to be a shorter story than I thought. They're kind of getting right to the point, and I kind of love it. There are indolent styles of the spirits in which, indisposed to talk ourselves, the talk of others is pleasant to our listless ears, and I gaze on, pleased with the tinkle of the ladies' conversation. Oh, yes, thank you for giving him a shout-out. I almost forgot, but thank you, Jern. This is why you're a moderator. Yeah, I still think about that candy, too. I'm jealous. He had this magnificent lollipop that I wanted. I've got into one of my moping moods tonight, said my father after a silence, and quoting Shakespeare, whom, by the way, keeping up our English, he used to read aloud. He said, "In truth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. But how I got it, came by it. I forget the rest, but I feel as if some great misfortune were hanging over us. I suppose the poor General's afflicted letter has had something to do with it." You think there was a death. A young lady died. At this moment, the unwonted sound of carriage wheels and many hoofs upon the road arrested our attention. They seemed to be approaching from the high ground overlooking the bridge, and very soon the equipage? I don't know what that word is, emerged from that point. 2 horsemen first crossed the bridge, then came a carriage drawn by 4 horses. There's a little bit of symbolism there, I see. And 2 men rode behind. It seemed to be the traveling carriage of a person of rank, and we were all immediately absorbed in watching that very unusual spectacle. It became, in a few moments, greatly more interesting. For just as the carriage had passed the summit of the steep bridge, one of the leaders, taking fright, communicated his panic to the rest, and after a plunge or two, the whole team broke into a wild gallop together, and dashing between the horsemen who rode in front, came thundering along the road towards us with the speed of a hurricane. The excitement of the scene was made more painful by the clear, long-drawn screams of a female voice from the carriage window. Oh no. We all advanced in curiosity and horror. Me rather in silence, the rest with various ejaculations of terror. Our suspense did not last long. Just before you reached the castle drawbridge, on the route which they were coming, there stands by the roadside a magnificent lime tree. On the other stands an ancient stone cross, at sight of which the horses, now going at a pace that was perfectly frightful, swerved so as to bring the wheel over the projecting roots of the tree. I knew what was coming. I covered my eyes, unable to see it out, and turned my head away. At the same moment I heard a cry from my lady friends, who had gone on a little. Curiosity opened my eyes, and I saw a scene of utter confusion. Two of the horses were on the ground. The carriage lay upon its side, with two wheels in the air. The men were busy removing the traces, and a lady with a commanding air and figure had got out, and stood with clasped hands, raising the handkerchief that was in them every now and then to her eyes. Through the carriage door was now lifted a young lady who appeared to be lifeless. My dear old father was already beside the elder lady with his hat in his hand, evidently tendering his aid and resources of his schloss. The lady did not appear to hear him, or have eyes for anything but the slender girl who was being placed against the slope of the bank. I approached. The young lady was apparently stunned, but she was certainly not dead. My father, who piqued himself on being something of a physician, had just had his fingers on her wrist and assured the lady, who declared herself her mother, and that her pulse, though faint and irregular, was undoubtedly still distinguishable. The lady clasped her hands and looked upward, as if in a momentary transport of gratitude, but immediately she broke out again in that theatrical way which is, I believe, natural to some people. She was what is called a fine-looking woman for her time of life, and must have been handsome. She was tall, but not thin, and dressed in black velvet, and looked rather pale, but with a proud, commanding countenance, though now agitated strangely. Who was ever being so born to calamity? I heard her say, with clasped hands as I came up. Here I am, on a journey of life and death, in prosecuting which to lose an hour is possibly to lose all. My child will not have recovered sufficiently to resume her route, for who can say how long? I must leave her. I cannot, dare not, delay. How far on, sir, can you tell, is the nearest village? I must leave her there, and I shall not see my darling. Oh, wow. For even hear of her till my return, 3 months hence. I plucked my father by the coat, and whispered earnestly in his ear, "Oh, papa, pray ask her to let her stay with us. It would be so delightful. Do pray." If madam will entrust her child to the care of my daughter and of her good gouvernante, Madame Perrodon, and permit her to remain as our guest under my charge until her return, it will confer a distinction and obligation upon us, and we shall treat her with all the care and devotion which so sacred a trust deserves. I cannot do that, sir. It would be to task your kindness and chivalry too cruelly. said the lady distractedly. It would, on the contrary, be to confer us a very great kindness. At the moment, we most need it. My daughter has just been disappointed by a cruel misfortune in a visit from which she had long anticipated a great deal of happiness. If you confide this young lady to our care, it would be her best consolation. The nearest village on your route is distant, and affords no such inn as you could think of placing your daughter at. You cannot allow her to continue her journey for any considerable distance without danger. If, as you say, you cannot suspend your journey, you must part with her tonight, and nowhere could you do so with more honest assurances of care and tenderness than here. Cheesecake, hello! Hello, Cheesecake. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. You caught me right at my drink moment. But yes, welcome. We are actually just about to end this. Oh, hi! Blue juice time, yes. Yes, hello, Fiend or Josh. I know that you already said that I should call you Josh, but I always tend to read the name first. Oh, it's great to be here. Oh, you're so sweet. You guys are all so sweet. I love it. I love the Twitch community. You guys have been so wonderful to me, and I've only been streaming for a month. Not quite a month. It'll be a month this weekend. Let's see, there was something in this lady's air and appearance so distinguished and even imposing, and in her manner so engaging as to impress one, quite apart from the dignity of her equipage. I don't know what that word is. Equipage? Could be equipage. With the conviction that she was a person of consequence. By this time, the carriage, I think it's equipage. It's just a weird word that is not used nowadays. Oh, hearts to you, Jerem. Hearts to you all. You all are wonderful. By this time, the carriage was replaced in its... Oh, thank you, Cece. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you for the host. I love you guys so much. I just want to sit here and talk about how nice you people are for 3 hours. By this time, the carriage was replaced in its upright position, and the horses quite tractable in the traces again. The lady threw on her daughter a glance which I fancied was not quite so affectionate as one might have anticipated from the beginning of the scene. Then she beckoned slightly to my father, and withdrew 2 or 3 steps with him out of hearing, and talked to him with a fixed and stern countenance, not at all like that with which she had hitherto spoken. I was filled with wonder that my father did not seem to perceive the change, and also unspeakably curious to learn what it could be that she was speaking, almost in his ear, with so much earnestness and rapidity. You had no idea that you could host from your phone? I didn't know you could do that either. Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. That was very sweet of you. 2 or 3 minutes at most, I think she remained thus employed. Then she turned, and a few steps brought her to where her daughter lay, supported by Madame Perrodon. She kneeled beside her for a moment and whispered, as Madame supposed, a little benediction in her ear. Then, hastily kissing her, she stepped into her carriage. The door was closed. The footmen in stately liveries jumped up behind. The outriders spurred on. The postilions cracked their whips. The horses plunged and broke suddenly into a furious canter that threatened soon again to become a gallop, and the carriage whirled away, followed at the same rapid pace by the 2 horsemen in the rear. Also news to you. Yeah, I had no idea it had that. Maybe they did an update recently. If you click on the share button on the video, it gives you the option. Good to know. I'll have to keep that in mind when I'm lurking again later. I'll be sure to try and give some hosts. I haven't really quite figured out how to do that yet. I've only somewhat recently figured out how to do raids properly. I just found out this story is public domain and I'm following along. Yes, it is public domain. Everything that I read on Twitch is going to be either public domain or the copyright is owned by the person who has given me permission to read. So I try to keep it, what's the word I'm looking for? Safe, in a way? Safe to read, safe to enjoy. And that's also why I tend to prefer the original text, because condensed versions or even some of the translated versions, I mean, sometimes you can't help it, but they technically have a copyright on them. Yeah, keep it legal. That's right. That's what I'm looking for. So I have to be very careful about the versions of the stories that I read. Now, if it can't be helped, then I do have to read a translated version, but for the most part, I keep it pretty legit here. Chapter 3. We compare notes. Let's see. What is that word? We followed the cortege with our eyes until it was swiftly lost to sight in the misty woods, and the very sound of the hoofs and the wheels died away in the silent night air. Nothing remained to assure us that the adventure had not been an illusion of a moment, but the young lady, who just at that moment opened her eyes. I could not see, for her face was turned from me, but she raised her head, evidently looking about her, and I heard a very sweet voice ask complainingly, "Where is Mamma?" Our good Madame Perrodon answered tenderly and added some comfortable assurances. Then I heard her ask, "Where am I? What is this place?" And after that she said, "I don't see the carriage, and Matska, there we go, Matska, where is she?" Madame answered all her questions in so far as she understood them, and gradually the young lady remembered how the misadventure came about, and was glad to hear that no one in, or in attendance on, the carriage was hurt, and on learning that her mamma had left her here till her return in about 3 months, she wept. Oh, so sad. Oh, we have chat. Are we German text anytime soon? Are we getting? Possibly. If I can find some public domain German texts, I can surely try to read it to you. Let's see. I'm going to have to check out for now. Work comes early. Have a good night. You have a good night too, Spectre. Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate you. But yes, thank you again. I was going to add my consolations to those of Madame Perrodon when Mademoiselle de la Fonte placed her hand upon my arm, saying, "Don't approach. One at a time is as much as she can at the present converse with. A very little excitement would possibly overpower her now." Actually, that's very true. As soon as she is comfortably in bed, I thought, I will run up to her room and see her, and just barge in and have a slumber party. Yep, that sounds like a great time. My father, in the meantime, had sent a servant on horseback for the physician, who lived about 2 leagues away, and a bedroom was being prepared for the young lady's reception. The stranger now rose, and leaning on Madame's arm, walked slowly over the drawbridge and into the castle gate. In the hall, servants waited to receive her, and she was conducted forthwith to her room. The room we usually sat in, as our drawing room, is long, having 4 windows that looked over the moat and drawbridge, upon the forest scene I have just described. It is furnished in old carved oak, with large carved cabinets, and the chairs are cushioned with crimson velvet. The walls are covered with tapestry and surrounded with great gold frames, the figures being as large as life, in ancient and very curious costume. And the subjects represented are hunting, hawking, and generally festive. It is not too stately to be extremely comfortable, and here we had our tea, for with his usual patriotic leanings, he insisted that the national beverage should make its appearance regularly, with our coffee and chocolate. Oh, chocolate sounds amazing right now. I'm a tad hormonal, so I definitely want chocolate. And even without that, I just love chocolate in general. We sat here this night, and with candles lighted, were talking over the adventure of the evening. Madame Perrodon and Mademoiselle de la Fontaine were both of our party. The young stranger had hardly lain down her head in her bed when she sank into a deep sleep, and those ladies had left her in the care of a servant. See, that's Gio? Is now falling. Did I say your name right? Thank you, by the way, and welcome. Thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. I lost my place. How do you like our guest? I asked as soon as Madame entered. Tell me all about her. See, you want brownies? Oh, I love fudgy brownies. I'll have to make some at some point. I haven't made them in a long time. I also make this layered pudding, which is called... That's Gio. Okay, I was right. Thank you. Awesome. And welcome again. I like to make a layered pudding called Death by Chocolate that is amazing, but there's crumbled up fudgy brownies in the mixture. It's one of the layers. Best dessert ever. I like her extremely, answered Madame. She is, I almost think, the prettiest creature I ever saw. About your age, and so gentle and nice. She is absolutely beautiful, threw in Mademoiselle, who had peeped for a moment into the stranger's room. Oh, you want to try? Yeah, I think I might be more local to you soon, so if we get a chance to hang out, we can definitely have some of that. I could certainly use some Death by Chocolate. So an excuse to make it is certainly welcome. You almost died by chocolate when you were 13? How? Why? Were you choking on it? Or are you allergic? That sounds like a happy way to die, honestly. 3/4 of a pound of 70% dark chocolate. Oh my goodness. How? It's so bitter. Though it is good. Though it is bitter. I tend to prefer milk, but I'll eat dark chocolate sometimes too. Yeah, I need more friends to hang out with too, so when I come closer, we can definitely set that up. You're more than welcome to escape at my place, and we can even stream together. Plus, I need to meet your dogs, so there is that. I've been waiting years to meet your dogs. Count me in for the death? Absolutely. And you prefer dark, but 70% is the upper limit? Yeah, that's that's tough. I mean, you get the most benefit with the darker the chocolate, but man, that taste, it can be a bit much sometimes. You can absolutely bring the corgis. Absolutely. No problem there. I would love that. So I just have to get settled, but yeah, you are more than welcome. I already lost my place. I'm so sorry, everybody. Ah, and such a sweet voice, added Madame Perrodon. Did you remark a woman in the carriage, after it was set up again? Who did not get out? Inquired Mademoiselle, but only looked from the window? No, we had not seen her. Oh, the corgis. Oh, I love it. I love the little emotes. They're so cute. I love your dogs. I don't know your dogs yet, but I love your dogs. I definitely lurk. I'm sorry, I creep on your page a lot. Forgive me. Then she described a hideous black woman. Oh no, don't go. Don't go there. The book is gonna go there. I'm so sorry. With a sort of colored turban on her head, and who was gazing all the time from the carriage window, nodding and grinning derisively toward the ladies, with gleaming eyes and large white eyeballs, and her teeth set as if in a fury. Did you remark what an ill-looking pack of men the servants were? Asked Madame. There is a mouse behind me. I can hear it in the wall. Where's my cat? Might have to run and get him to scare this thing away. Yes, you do. I would love those photos of your dogs. That would be great. Yes, said my father, who had just come in. Ugly, hangdog looking fellows as ever I beheld in my life. I hope they mayn't rob the poor lady in the forest. They are clever rogues, however, they got everything to rights in a minute. I dare say they are worn out with too long travelling, said Madame. Besides looking wicked, their faces were so strangely lean and dark and sullen. I am very curious, I own, but I dare say the young lady will tell you all about it tomorrow if she is sufficiently recovered. I don't think she will, said my father, with a mysterious smile and a little nod of his head, as if he knew more about it than he cared to tell us. This made us all more inquisitive as to what had passed between him and the lady in the black velvet. In the brief but earnest interview that had immediately preceded her departure, we were scarcely alone when I entreated him to tell me. He did not need much pressing. There is no particular reason why I should not tell you. She expressed a reluctance to trouble us with the care of her daughter, saying she was in delicate health and nervous, but not subject to any kind of seizure. She volunteered that, nor to any illusion, there's my cat, being in fact perfectly sane. Come here. Come on. Come say hello quickly. Come on. How very odd to say all that. It was so unnecessary. At all events it was said, he said. And as you wish to know all that passed, which was indeed very little, I tell you. She then said, I am making a long journey of vital importance. She emphasized the word, rapid and secret. I shall return for my child in 3 months. In the meantime, she will be silent as to who we are, whence we come, and whither we are traveling. That is all she said. She spoke very pure French when she said the word secret. She paused for a few seconds, looking sternly, her eyes fixed on mine. I fancy she makes a great point of that. You saw how quickly she was gone. I hope I have not done a very foolish thing in taking charge of the young lady. Where are you? He's being shy. I'm sorry. Come on. Would you hurry up and come say hello? There we go. There he is. Come on. You on Mama's lap? Okay. So say hello to everybody. Here's Kasaba again. Hello. Don't look at me. Look at the camera. Say hello. Are you enjoying Carmilla? Yeah. Okay, here you go. And settle in so I can read. For my part, I was delighted. I was longing to see and talk to her, and only waiting till the doctor should give me leave. You, who live in towns, have no idea how great an event the introduction of a new friend is. In such a solitude as surrounded us. Actually, I know quite well. Oh, you missed your spooky boy? Yeah, I'm sorry. At least you have puppies to keep you company. I'm hoping that I can take him with me on my move, but we haven't quite figured that out yet. And I want to make sure he's in the best environment for himself. So, selfish me says he's mine, but you need to make the best decision for your animals. We'll see. Yes, yeah, and you have 2 puppies that love you very much. And I will definitely snuggle your dogs quite a bit when I meet them. This needs to happen. Which, I have something to invite you to on Discord. I'll talk to you about that later, but there's a ghost miss coming up, and I'll explain it to you later. The doctor did not arrive till nearly 1 o'clock, but I could no more have gone to my bed and slept. And then I could have overtaken, on foot, the carriage in which the princess in black velvet had driven away. When the physician came down to the drawing-room, it was to report very favorably upon his patient. She was now sitting up, her pulse quite regular, apparently perfectly well. She had sustained no injury, and the little shock to her nerves had passed away quite harmlessly. There could be no harm, certainly, in my seeing her, if we both wished it, and with this permission I sent forthwith, to know whether she would allow me to visit her for a few minutes in her room. Good, wonderful. Just remind me, because my short-term memory is terrible. But, yes, I'll go over that with you. The servant returned immediately to say that she desired nothing more. You may be sure I was not long in availing myself of this permission. Our visitor lay in one of the handsomest rooms in the Schloss. It was, perhaps, a little stately. There was a somber piece of tapestry opposite the foot of the bed, representing Cleopatra with the asps of her bosom, or to her bosom. And other solemn classic scenes were displayed, a little faded, upon the other walls. But there was gold carving and rich and varied color enough in the other decorations of the room to more than redeem the gloom of the old tapestry. Oh, what's wrong with a little gloom? I think there's something charming to just a little gloom. A little darkness makes for a cozy room. There were candles at the bedside. She was sitting up, her slender, pretty figure enveloped in the soft silk dressing gown, embroidered with flowers and lined with thick quilted silk, which her mother had thrown over her feet as she lay upon the ground. What was it that as I reached the bedside and had just begun my little greeting, struck me dumb in a moment, and made me recoil a step or two from before her. I will tell you. I saw the very face which had visited me in my childhood at night, which remained so fixed in my memory, and on which I had for so many years so often ruminated with horror, when no one suspected of what I was thinking. It was pretty, even beautiful, and when I first beheld it, wore the same melancholy expression. But this almost instantly lighted into a strange fixed smile of recognition. There was a silence of fully a minute, and then at length she spoke. I could not. "How wonderful!" she exclaimed. "12 years ago I saw your face in a dream, and it has haunted me ever since." "Wonderful indeed," I repeated, overcoming with an effort the horror that had for a time suspended my utterance. 12 years ago, in a vision or reality, I certainly saw you. I could not forget your face. It has remained before my eyes ever since." Her smile had softened. Whatever I had fancied strange in it was gone, and it and her dimpling cheeks were now delightfully pretty and intelligent. I felt reassured and continued more in the vein which hospitality indicated, to bid her welcome and to tell her how much pleasure her accidental arrival had given us all, and especially what a happiness it was to me. "So, again, you recognize this woman. She bit your bosom as a child. And you're just like, hey, how's it going? How you do? Right? Right? My cat agrees. How's it going? Welcome back. We're old friends. I mean, I guess that's an intimate experience. Cyber. Or is it cyber? Cyber. Sorry. Welcome. Welcome, Mr. Wraith. Or is it Miss Wraith? I don't know your gender. Anyway, welcome. It's so good to see you here. My cat is screaming in the background and it has me very distracted. Oh, yeah. Okay, mister. All right, I was right the first time. Thank you. So you guys can hear him screaming in the background? Because he is just singing tonight. Please come over here because I know you'll shut up. Okay, he finally shut up. My cat, everybody. He needs attention. All the time. Every day. I actually caught him soon before the stream. There's a urinal in the bathroom down here. And the first time I checked on him, he was drinking out of it. The second time, he was just sitting in it. I thought he was trying to use it as a litter box or something, but no, he was just chilling in this urinal, just completely comfortable, just happy, his butt wet, but, he was happy. Crystalline Art, hi, welcome. Another streamer friend. Let's see. Let's do this. Yes. Oh, you already did it. Oh, thank you, Germ. We both did it. Yay. Good work, everybody. Good work. Oh, look at all the people. I'm so happy to see you guys. You guys are awesome. So we're reading Carmilla, and we're at a part where the lady that bit the main character's chest as a child is now at her house, and she's just kind of like, hey, it's great to see you. How's it going? I missed you. Just, very casual. As one does. Let's see. Sorry, I don't want to miss anybody in chat. Completely normal behavior. Hey, hi Chrysaline Art. I'm so glad you're here. I wasn't sure if you'd be tired after work, but thank you so much. I took her hand as I spoke. I was a little shy, as lonely people are, but the situation made me eloquent, and even bold. She bit you. You better be bold. She pressed my hand. She laid hers upon it, and her eyes glowed, as looking hastily into mine, she smiled again and blushed. Oh, it's this. This is one of those stories. I'm liking it even more. She answered my welcome very prettily. I sat down beside her, still wondering, and she said, I must tell you my vision about you. It is so very strange that you and I should have had each of the others so vivid in a dream, that each should have seen, I you and you me, looking as we do now, when of course we both were mere children. I was a child about 6 years old, and I awoke from a confused and troubled dream, and found myself in a room unlike my nursery, wainscoted clumsily in some dark wood, and with cupboards and bedsteads and chairs and benches placed about it. The beds were, I thought, all empty, and the room itself without anyone but myself in it. And I, after looking about me for some time, and admiring especially an iron candlestick with 2 branches, which I should certainly know again, crept under one of the beds to reach the window. But as I got from under the bed, I heard someone crying, and looking up, while I was still upon my knees, I saw you. Most assuredly you, as I see you now, a beautiful young lady with golden hair, and large blue eyes, and lips, your lips. You as you are here. What about her lips, madam? Please finish that thought. I am curious to know what your thought is. Your looks won me. I climbed on the bed and put my arms about you, and I think we both fell asleep. Oh. I was aroused by a scream. You were sitting up screaming. I was frightened, and I slipped down upon the ground, and it seemed to me I lost consciousness for a moment. And when I came to myself, I was again in my nursery at home. Your face I have never forgotten since. I could not be misled by mere resemblance. You are the lady whom I saw then. See, I took a break from my late night work studies. This is better than Audible by a mile. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, both of you. Thank you so much. I try. I stumble a lot on my words, but I really try. It was now my turn to relate my corresponding vision, which I did, to the undistinguished wonder of my new acquaintance. I don't know which should be most afraid of the other, she said, again smiling. If you were less pretty, I think I should be very much afraid of you. But being as you are... My goodness, she is laying it on thick. But being as you are, and you and I both so young, I feel only that I have made your acquaintance 12 years ago, and have already a right to your intimacy. At all events, it does seem as if we were destined, from our earliest childhood to be friends. Friends. I wonder whether you feel as strangely drawn towards me as I do to you. I've never had a friend. Shall I find one now? She sighed, and her fine dark eyes gazed passionately on me. Wow, this got saucy. Hold it. Now the truth is, I felt rather unaccountably towards the beautiful stranger. I did feel, as she said, drawn towards her. But there was also something of repulsion. In this ambiguous feeling, however, the sense of attraction immensely prevailed. She interested and won me. She was so beautiful and so indescribably engaging. Where is this story going? My goodness. I perceived now something of languor and exhaustion stealing over her, and hastened to bid her good night. Do just stay in the room, just stay in the bed. You two have already slept together. Just saying. The doctor thinks, I added, that you ought to have a maid to sit up with you tonight. One of ours is waiting, and you will find her a very useful and quiet creature. How kind of you, but I could not sleep. I never could with an attendant in the room. I shan't require any assistance. And, shall I confess my weakness, I am haunted with a terror of robbers. Our house was robbed once, and 2 servants murdered. So I always lock my door. It has become a habit. And you look so kind. I know you will forgive me. I see there is a key in the lock. She held me close in her pretty arms for a moment and whispered in my ear, Good night, darling. It is very hard to part with you, but good night. Tomorrow, but not early, I shall see you again. She sank back on the pillow with a sigh, and her fine eyes followed me with a fond and melancholy gaze, and she murmured again, Good night, dear friend. Goodness. Young people like, and even love, on impulse. I was flattered by the evident, though as yet undeserved, fondness she showed me. I liked the confidence with which she had once received me. She was determined that we should be very near friends. Next day came, and we met again. I was delighted with my companion. That is to say, in many respects. Just get it on. We know what's going to happen here. Her looks lost nothing in daylight. She was certainly the most beautiful creature I had ever seen, and the unpleasant remembrance of the face presented in my early dream had lost the effect of the first unexpected recognition. She confessed that she had experienced a similar shock on seeing me, and precisely the same faint antipathy that had mingled with my admiration of her. We now laughed together over our momentary horrors. Again, they seem so nonchalant about, friends, quote, quote. They're going to be very close friends, I'm sure. Though, hey, some friendships do start with a hard bite on one person. I can attest to this. Chapter 4. Her habits, a saunter. I told you that I was charmed with her in most particulars. There were some that did not please me so well. She was above the middle height of women. I shall begin by describing her. She was slender and wonderfully graceful, except that her movements were languid, very languid indeed. There was nothing in her appearance to indicate an invalid. Her complexion was rich and brilliant. Her features were small and beautifully formed. Her eyes large, dark, and lustrous. Her hair was quite wonderful. I never saw hair so magnificently thick and long when it was down about her shoulders. I have often placed my hands under it and laughed with wonder at its weight. It was exquisitely fine and soft, and in color a very rich dark brown, with something of gold. I loved to let it down, tumbling with its own weight, as in her room she lay back in her chair, talking with her sweet low voice. I used to fold and braid it, and spread it out, and play with it. Heavens, if I had known all. I said there were particulars which did not please me. I have told you that her confidence won me the first night I saw her, but I found that she exercised, with respect to herself, her mother, her history, everything, in fact, connected with her life, plans and people, an ever-wakeful reserve. I dare say I was unreasonable. Perhaps I was wrong. I dare say I ought to have respected the solemn injunction laid upon my father by the stately lady in black velvet. But curiosity is a restless and unscrupulous passion, and no one girl can endure with patience that hers should be baffled by another. What harm could it do? Sorry, my contacts got blurry. What harm could it do anyone to tell me what I so ardently desired to know? Had she no trust in my good sense or honor? Why would she not believe me when I assured her so solemnly that I would not divulge one syllable of what she told me to any mortal breathing? There was a coldness, it seemed to me, beyond her years, in her smiling melancholy, persistent refusal to afford me the least ray of light. I cannot say we quarreled upon this point, for she would not quarrel upon any. It was, of course, very unfair of me to press her, very ill-bred, but I really could not help it, and I might just as well have let it alone. What she did tell me amounted, in my estimation, to nothing. It was all summed up in 3 very vague disclosures. First, her name was Carmilla. Second, her family was very ancient and noble. Third, her home lay in the direction of the west. Well, that is very vague. She would not tell me the name of her family, nor their bearings, nor the name of their estate, nor even that of the country they lived. You are not to suppose that I worried her incessantly on these subjects. I watched opportunity, and rather insinuated than urged my inquiries. Once or twice, indeed, I did attack her more directly. But no matter what my tactics, utter failure was the result. Reproaches and caresses were all lost upon her. But I must add this, that her evasion was conducted with so pretty a melancholy and deprecation, with so many and even passionate declarations of her liking for me, and trust in my honor, and with so many promises that I should at last know all, that I could not find it in my heart long to be offended with her. Good night. Oh, are you going to bed? All right, good night, Josh. Sleep well. She used to place her pretty arms about my neck, draw me to her, and laying her cheek to mine, murmur with her lips near my ear, "Dearest, your little heart is wounded. Think me not cruel because I obey the irresistible law of my strength. and weakness. If your dear heart is wounded, my wild heart bleeds with yours. In the rapture of my enormous humiliation, I live in your warm life. And you shall die sweetly die, into mine. I cannot help it as I draw near to you. You, in your turn, will draw near to others, and learn the rapture of that cruelty, which is yet love. Which yet is love. So, for a while, seek to know no more of me and mine, but trust me with all your loving spirit. I mean, that's still asking a lot, but okay. And when she had spoken such a rhapsody, she would press me more closely in her trembling embrace, and her lips in soft kisses gently glow upon my cheek. Okay, they're friends. Just friends, guys. Just friends. Her agitations and her language were unintelligible to me. From these foolish embraces, which were not of very frequent occurrence, I must allow I used to wish to extricate myself. But my energies seemed to fail me. Her murmured words sounded like a lullaby in my ear, and soothed my resistance into a trance, from which I only seemed to recover myself when she withdrew her arms. It's a bit sus. In these mysterious moods, I did not like her. I experienced a strange, tumultuous excitement that was pleasurable, ever and anon, mingled with a vague sense of fear and disgust. I had no distinct thoughts about her while such scenes lasted, but I was conscious of a love growing into adoration, and also abhorrence. This, I know, is paradox, but I can make no other attempt to explain the feeling. I now write, after an interval of more than 10 years, with a trembling hand, with a confused and horrible recollection of certain occurrences and situations, in the ordeal through which I was unconsciously passing, though with a vivid and very sharp remembrance of the main current of my story. But I suspect, in all lives, there are certain emotional scenes, those in which our passions have been most wildly and terribly roused, that are, of all others, the most vaguely and dimly remembered. Sometimes after an hour of apathy, my strange and beautiful companion would take my hand and hold it with a fond pressure, renewed again and again, blushing softly. Oh my God, stomach, please stop. Blushing softly, gazing in my face with languid and burning eyes, and breathing so fast that her dress rose and fell with a respiration. Oh my goodness. Just do it already. It was the ardor of a lover. It embraced me. It was hateful and yet overpowering, and with gloating eyes she drew me to her, and her hot lips traveled along my cheek with kisses. Oh. And she would whisper, almost in sobs, "You are mine. You shall be mine. You and I are one forever." Then she had thrown herself back in her chair, with her small hands over her eyes, leaving me trembling. "Are we related?" I used to ask. Oh my goodness. "What can you mean by all this? I remind you perhaps of someone whom you love. But you must not. I hate it. I don't know you. I don't know myself when you look so and talk so." She used to sigh at my vehemence, then turn away and drop my hand. Respecting these very extraordinary manifestations, I strove in vain to form any satisfactory theory. Please stop, stomach. Please stop. I could not refer them to affection or trick. It was unmistakably the momentary breaking out of suppressed instinct and emotion. Was she, notwithstanding her mother's volunteered denial, subject to brief visitations of insanity? Or was there here a disguise and a romance? I had read in old storybooks of such things. What if a boyish lover had found his way into the house and sought to prosecute his suit in masquerade, with the assistance of a clever old adventuress? But there were many things against this hypothesis, highly interesting as it was to my vanity. I might have to take a moment to go eat something very quick. Like, it'll only take me 2 seconds, but this is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure the mic is picking this up and it's bothering me. So give me just a moment. I will be right back, and hopefully my stomach will shut the fuck up. Okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry about that. But hopefully this will stop. It was annoying me. At that point, I don't even really feel hungry, but it was being loud. Alright, I think we're good. Took a little kratom. I have a backup banana just in case. So, if my stomach starts acting up again, we will silence it with banana. Alright. It spooked you a little, the banana? Or did I just surprise you or something? Oh, you were okay. Yeah, sorry. It took me a second. I actually just went into my fridge and grabbed like a whole pile of lunch meat, a piece of cheese, slapped them together, and just chowed down real quick. Didn't even make a sandwich. I just ate it just like that. Okay. It feels like it is satiated. Mukbang? What's mukbang? Alright. Let me try and find my place again. So, okay. Excuse me. You are fine. You should definitely eat. I'm the same way, though. I understand fully. Yeah. My stomach doesn't always tell me when to eat. It waits until it's very inconvenient to suddenly make noise. But I don't feel hungry that often, so I forget all the time. It's not intentional, but it kind of comes with corset training, especially, or if you have a lot of stress, which I've both. Let's see, mukbang is a Korean term for eating large amounts of food in front of people. Ah, yes. Well, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but more so on cam. Okay, I can understand that. Especially if I'm actually choosing to diet quite strictly, I will definitely watch people eat because I know I can't. This is not intentional though. This is just me forgetting. All right. Let's see. Okay, I think I found the spot. I could boast of no little attention such as masculine gallantry delights to offer. Between these passionate moments, there were long intervals of commonplace, of gaiety, of brooding melancholy, during which, except that I detected her eyes so full of melancholy fire, following me at times, I might have been as nothing to her. Except in these brief periods of mysterious excitement, her ways were girlish, and there was always a languor about her. Languor? Quite incompatible with the masculine system in a state of health. I mean, it's not necessarily a masculine way of being, but okay. Donate for mukbang? Yeah, you know what? If you want me to eat a whole bunch on camera, send me food and I will eat it. Sure, we'll make that deal. In some respects, her habits were odd. Perhaps not so singular in the opinion of a town lady like you, as they appeared to us rustic people. She used to come down very late, generally not till 1 o'clock. She would then take a cup of chocolate, but eat nothing. We then went out for a walk, which was a mere saunter, and she seemed almost immediately exhausted, and either returned to the Schloss or sat on one of the benches that were placed here and there among the trees. This was a bodily languor, in which her mind did not sympathize. She was always an animated talker, and very intelligent. Just like the anime. Hashtag feed Spanky. You know what? I'm into it. I am not against eating. I don't know what it is. People love giving me food. I don't understand it, but I love it, and I appreciate it. Chris Leonard being one of those people that has indeed given me awesome food. She sometimes alluded for a moment to her home, or mentioned an adventure or situation or an early recollection, which indicated a people of strange manners, and described customs of which we knew nothing. I gathered from these chance hints that her native country was much more remote than I had first fancied. Figuring that shit out. As we sat thus one afternoon, under the trees, a funeral passed us by. It was that of a pretty young girl whom I had often seen, the daughter of one of the rangers of the forest. The poor man was walking behind the coffin of his darling. She was his only child, and he looked quite heartbroken. Peasants walking two and two came behind. They were singing a funeral hymn. I rose to mark my respect as they passed, and joined in the hymn they were very sweetly singing. My companion shook me a little roughly, and I turned surprised. She said, "Don't you perceive how discordant that is?" "I think it very sweet, on the contrary," I answered, vexed at the interruption, and very uncomfortable lest the people who composed the little procession should observe and resent what was passing. Oof. I resumed, therefore, instantly, and was again interrupted. "You pierce my ears," said Carmilla, most angrily. Almost angrily, and stopping her ears with her tiny fingers. "Besides, how can you tell that your religion and mine are the same? Your forms wound me, and I hate funerals. What a fuss! Why, you must die. Everyone must die. And all are happier when they do. Come home. My father has gone on with a clergyman to the churchyard. I thought you knew she was to be buried today." "She? I don't trouble my head about peasants. I don't know who she is," answered Carmilla with a flash from her fine eyes. She is the poor girl who fancied she saw a ghost a fortnight ago, and has been dying ever since, till yesterday, when she expired." That mouse is back. "Tell me nothing about ghosts. I shan't sleep tonight if you do. I hope there is no plague or fever coming. All this looks very like it," I continued. "The swineherd's young wife died only a week ago, and she thought something seized her by the throat as she lay in her bed, and nearly strangled her. Papa says such horrible fancies do accompany some forms of fever. She was quite well the day before. She sank afterwards and died before a week." "Well, her funeral is over, I hope, and her hymn sung, and our ears shan't be tortured with that discord and jargon. It has made me nervous. Sit down here beside me. Sit close. Hold my hand. Press it hard. Hard. Harder." I say nothing. We had moved a little back, and had come to another seat. She sat down. Her face underwent a change that alarmed and even terrified me for a moment. It darkened, and became horribly livid, Her teeth and hands were clenched, and she frowned and compressed her lips, while she stared down upon the ground at her feet, and trembled all over with continued shudder, as irresistible as a goo. All her energies seemed strained to suppress a fit, with which she was then breathlessly tugging. And at length a low, convulsive cry of suffering broke from her, and gradually the hysteria subsided. There! That comes of strangling people with hymns. She said that at last. Hold me still. It is passing away. And so gradually it did, and perhaps to dissipate the somber impression which the spectacle had left upon me, she became unusually animated and chatty. And so we got home. This was the first time I had seen her exhibit any definable symptoms of that delicacy of health which her mother had spoken of. It was the first time also I had seen her exhibit anything like temper. Both passed away like a summer cloud, and never but once afterwards did I witness on her part a momentary sign of anger. I will tell you how it happened. She and I were looking out of one of the long drawing-room windows, when there entered the courtyard over the drawbridge a figure of a wanderer whom I knew very well. He used to visit the Schloss generally twice a year. It was the figure of a hunchback, with the sharp, lean features that generally accompany deformity. He wore a pointed black beard, and he was smiling from ear to ear, showing his white fangs. He was dressed in buff black and scarlet, and crossed with more straps and belts than I could count, from which hung all manner of things. Behind he carried a magic lantern and 2 boxes, which I well knew, in one of which was a salamander, and in the other a mandrake. These monsters used to make my father laugh. They were compounded of parts of monkeys, parrots, squirrels, fish, and hedgehogs, dried and stitched together with great neatness and startling effect. He had a fiddle, a box of conjuring apparatus, a pair of foils and masks attached to his belt, several other mysterious cases dangling about him, and a black staff with copper ferrules in his hand. His companion was a rough, spare dog that followed at his heels, but stopped short, suspiciously at the drawbridge, and in a little while began to howl dismally. Or dismally? Whatever. I might pass out on... Okay, that's fine. That's understandable. This is kind of the goal of this, to help people sleep and kind of soothe them with stories. So if you pass out, that's okay. This is being recorded, and it will be posted on YouTube soon. Once I'm done uploading all of the Frankenstein stuff, I will be uploading this. So you'll get a chance to listen to the end if you wish to. Let's see. In the meantime, the mountebank, standing in the midst of the courtyard, raised his grotesque hat and made us a very ceremonious bow, paying his compliments very volubly in French, and German, not much better. Then, disengaging his fiddle, he began to scrape a lively air, to which he sang with a merry discord, dancing with ludicrous airs and activity that made me laugh in spite of the dog's howling. Goth girl, check. Total babe, oh, check. Literate, bonus points. Thank you. I try. I stumble on my words a little bit here and there, but for some reason I read German better than English. I don't know why, but thank you, and welcome. It is very relaxing. Thank you, Cheesecake. You are such a sweetheart. You're doing fine. Oh, thank you. Thank you both. You guys are... Everybody's so nice. making sure I find my place again, because I always move my finger away. Then, disengaging his fiddle, he began to scrape a lively air to which he sang with a merry discord. Oh, here we go. Nope, I already read that. Then he advanced to the window with many smiles and salutations, and his hat in his left hand, his fiddle under his arm, and with a fluency that never took breath. He gabbled a long advertisement of all of his accomplishments, and the resources of the various arts which he placed at our service, and the curiosities and entertainments which it was in his power, at our bidding, to display. Big titty goth chick is doing fine. Aw. That's adorable. I love it. Best hashtag right there. I'll have to use that. Will your ladyships be pleased to buy an amulet against the opar, which is going like the wolf, I hear, through these woods? He said, dropping his hat on the pavement. They are dying of it right and left, and here is a charm that never fails, only pinned to the pillow, and you may laugh in his face. These charms consisted of oblong slips of vellum, with cabalistic ciphers and diagrams upon them. Carmilla instantly purchased one, and so did I. He was looking up, and we were smiling down upon him, amused at least. I can answer for myself. His piercing black eye, as he looked up in our faces, seemed to detect something that fixed, for a moment, his curiosity. In an instant he unrolled a leather case full of all manner of odd little steel instruments. Oh my, maybe he's getting a hint of this relationship, their friendship. See here, my lady, he said, displaying it and addressing me. I profess, among the other things less useful, the art of dentistry. Oh, he's really taking liberty with his guesses here. Oh my. Plague take the dog, he interpolated. Silence, beast. He howls so that your ladyships can scarcely hear a word. Your noble friend, the young lady at your right, has the sharpest tooth, long, thin, pointed like an awl, like a needle. With my sharp and long sight, as I look up, I have seen it distinctly. Now, if it happens to hurt the young lady, and I think it must, here am I. Here are my file, my punch, my nippers. I will make it round and blunt, for her ladyship pleases. No longer the tooth of a fish, but of a beautiful young lady that she is. Hey, is the young lady displeased? Have I been too bold? Have I offended her? Yes, you have. Don't you dare file that thing. The young lady indeed looked very angry as she drew back from the window. How dares that mountebank insult us so? Where is your father? I shall demand redress from him. My father would have had the wretch tied up to the pump, and flogged with a cart whip, and burnt, oh my goodness, to the bones with a cattle brand. She retired from the window a step or two, and sat down, and had hardly lost sight of the offender, when her wrath subsided, and suddenly, as it had risen, and she gradually recovered to her usual tone, and seemed to forget the little hunchback and his follies. My father was out of spirits that evening. On coming in, he told us that there had been another case very similar to the two fatal ones which had lately occurred. The sister of a young peasant on his estate, only a mile away, was very ill, and had been, as she described it, attacked very nearly in the same way, and was now slowly but steadily sinking. All this, said my father, is strictly referable to natural causes. These poor people infect one another with their superstitions, and so repeat in imagination the images of terror that have infested their neighbors. But that very circumstance frightens one horribly, said Carmilla. How so? Inquired my father. I am so afraid of fancying I see such things. I think it would be as bad as reality. We are in God's hands. Nothing can happen without his permission, and all will end well for those who love him. He is our faithful creator. He has made us all, and will take care of us. No comment. The doctor said he would come here today, said my father. Wait, hold on. I skipped. Creator, nature, said the young lady in an answer to my gentle father. And this disease that invades the country is natural. Nature. All things proceed from nature, don't they? All things in the heaven, in the earth, and under the earth, act and live as nature ordains. I think so. The doctor said he would come by here today, said my father, after a silence. I want to know what he thinks about it, and what he thinks he had better do. Doctors never did me any good, said Carmilla. Then you have been ill? I asked. More ill than ever you were, she answered. Long ago? Yes, a long time. I suffered from this very illness, but I forget all but my pain and weakness, and they were not so bad as are suffered in other diseases. You were very young, then? I dare say. Let us talk no more of it. You would not wound a friend? She looked languidly in my eyes, and passed her arm around my waist lovingly, and led me out of the room. My father was busy over some papers near the window. Why does your papa like to frighten us? Said the pretty girl with a sigh and a little shudder. My goodness, she is a piece of work. Still better than Victor, though. He doesn't, dear Carmilla. It is the very furthest thing from his mind. Are you afraid, dearest? I should be very much if I fancied there was any real danger of my being attacked, as those poor people were. You are afraid to die? Yes, everyone is. But to die as lovers may, to die together, so that they may live together. Girls are caterpillars like they live in the world, to be finally butterflies when the summer comes, but in the meantime there are grubs and larvae. Don't you see? Each with their peculiar propensities, necessities, and structure. So say Monsieur Buffon in his big book in the next room. Later in the day the doctor came, and was closeted with Papa for some time. He was a skilful man, of 60 and upwards. He wore powder, and shaved his pale face as smooth as a pumpkin. Interesting. He and Papa emerged from the room together, and I heard Papa laugh and say as they came out, Well, I do wonder at a wise man like you. What do you say to hippogriffs and dragons? The doctor was smiling, and made answer, shaking his head, Nevertheless, life and death are mysterious states, and we know little of the resources of either. And so they walked on, and I heard no more. I did not then know what the doctor had been broaching, but I think I guess it now. What's our time? Oh, we're only a little above 2 hours. We're still good. Chapter 5. A Wonderful Likeness. Take a sip real quick. Oh, don't lose the page. Yes, I am using my chest to stop the page from turning. This evening there arrived from Grant's the Grave dark-faced son of the picture cleaner, with a horse and a cart laden with 2 large packing cases, having many pictures in each. It was a journey of 10 leagues, and whenever a messenger arrived at the Schloss from our little capital of Gratz, we used to crowd about him in the hall to hear the news. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's so nice. I'm not. I stumble a lot. There's a slight stutter in my speech, but I appreciate that very much. This arrival created in our secluded quarters quite a sensation. The cases remained in the hall, and the messenger was taken charge of by the servants till he had eaten his supper. Then, with assistance, and arms with a hammer, rippling chisel, and turnscrew, he met us in the hall, where he had assembled to witness the unpacking of the cases. Carmilla sat looking listlessly on, while one after the other the old pictures, nearly all portraits, which had undergone the process of renovation, were brought to light. My mother was of an old Hungarian family, and most of these pictures were about to be restored to their places, had come to us through her. My father had a list in his hand from which he read as the artist rummaged out the corresponding numbers. I don't know that the pictures were very good, but they were undoubtedly very old, and some of them very curious also. They had, for the most part, the merit of being now seen by me, I may say, for the first time, for the smoke and dust of time had all but obliterated them. Oh, thank you. I'm glad they're endearing and not annoying. So long as it's not annoying, I try my best not to let it occur. There is a picture that I have not yet seen, said my father. In one corner, at the top of it, is the name, as well as I could read, Marcia Karnstein, and the date, 1698. And I am curious to see how it has turned out. Okay, so this story actually provides years. Frankenstein did not. Frankenstein would put 17 and then blank. There's an actual date in here. I remembered it. It was a small picture, about 1.5 feet high and nearly square, without a frame. But it was so blackened by age, I could not make it out. The artist now produced it. With evident pride, it was quite beautiful. It was startling. It seemed to live. It was the effigy of Carmilla. Carmilla, dear, here is an absolute miracle. Here you are, living, smiling, ready to speak, in this picture. Isn't it beautiful, Papa? And see, even the little mole on her throat. My father laughed and said, certainly it is a wonderful likeness. But he looked away, and to my surprise seemed but little struck by it, and went on talking to the picture cleaner, who was also something of an artist, and discoursed with intelligence about the portraits or other works, which his art had just brought into light and color, while I was more and more lost in wonder the more I looked at the picture. Will you let me hang this picture in my room, Papa? I asked. Certainly, dear, said he, smiling. I'm very glad you think it so like. It must be prettier even than I thought it, if it is. The young lady did not acknowledge this pretty speech, did not seem to hear it. She was leaning back in her seat, her fine eyes under her long lashes gazing on me in contemplation. And she smiled in a kind of rapture. And now you can read quite plainly the name that was written in the corner. It is not Marcia. It looks as if it was done in gold. The name Marcella, or is it Marsala? It's not Marsala, it's Marcella. Countess Karnstein. And this is a little coronet over and underneath AD. 1698. I am descended from the Karnsteins, that is, Mama was. Ah, said the lady languidly. So am I. I think a very long descent, very ancient. Are there any Karnsteins living now? Alright, I need my cat in the room. I don't know what this mouse is doing, but it sounds like it's having a dance party behind my seat. It's just very boldly fluttering about. This thing is bugging me. And clearly it is not bothered by human presence, because it is very close. None who bear the name, I believe. The family were ruined, I believe, in some civil wars long ago, but the ruins of the castle are only about 3 miles away. Oh, so that town that got ruined, it was mentioned in the beginning. Seems like a familiar place. How interesting, she said, languidly. But see what beautiful moonlight. She glanced through the hall door, which stood a little open. Suppose you take a little ramble around the court and look down at the road and river. It is so like the night you came to us, I said. She sighed, smiling. She rose, and each with her arm about the other's waist, we walked out upon the pavement. Okay, these two are clearly more than friends. Oh my goodness. Their relationship is more intimate than mine. Anyway, in silence, slowly we walked down the drawbridge, where the beautiful landscape opened before us. And so you were thinking of the night I came here? She almost whispered. Are you glad I came? Delighted, dear Carmilla, I answered. And you asked for the picture you think like me to hang in your room, she murmured with a sigh, as she drew her arm closer to my waist and let her pretty head sink upon my shoulder. How romantic you are, Carmilla, I said. Whenever you tell me your story, it will be made up chiefly of some one great romance. She kissed me silently. There it is. I am sure, Carmilla, you have been in love. That there is, at this moment, an affair of the heart going on. I've been in love with no one, and never shall, she whispered, unless it should be with you. Ooh, Carmilla is smooth. How beautiful she looked in the moonlight. Shy and strange was the look with which she quickly hid her face in my neck and hair, with tumultuous sighs that seemed almost to sob, and pressed in mine a hand that trembled. Her soft cheek was glowing against mine. Darling, darling, she murmured, I live in you, and you would die for me. I love you so. Maybe not talk about the person dying for you part. It's a little weird. I started from her. She was gazing on me with eyes from which all fire, all meaning had flown, and a face colorless and apathetic. Is there a chill in the air, dear? She said drowsily. I almost shiver. Have I been dreaming? Let us come in. Come in. You look ill, Carmilla. A little faint. You certainly must take some wine, I said. Yes, when you're ill, definitely drink some wine. That's gonna make you feel better. Don't drink water or tea. Drink alcohol. It's a great idea. Just drink a bunch of alcohol. Perfect. A plus. It always makes it better. Okay, I will admit, our sangria night was pretty nice. I enjoyed it. Yes, the wine is the cure-all. The wine is also the secret to my delicious pasta sauce. Therapeutic? Absolutely. It can be. It can be with the right company. Yes, I will. I am better now. I shall be quite well in a few minutes. Yes, do give me a little wine, answered Carmilla as we approached the door. Let us look again for a moment. It is the last time, perhaps, I shall see the moonlight with you. Oh. How do you feel now, dear Carmilla? Are you really better? I asked. I was beginning to take alarm lest she should have been stricken with a strange epidemic that they said had invaded the country about us. Papa would be grieved beyond measure, I added, if he thought he were ever so little ill, without immediately letting us know. We have a very skillful doctor near us, the physician who was with Papa today. I'm sure he is. I know how kind you all are. But, dear child, I am quite well again. There is nothing ever wrong with me but a little weakness. People say I am languid. I am incapable of exertion. I can scarcely walk as far as a child of 3 years old, and every now and then the little strength I have falters, and I have become as you have just seen. But after all, I am very easily set up again. In a moment, I am perfectly myself. See how I have recovered. Oh, Power Rob's here. Oh my goodness. And there's the Illuminati. The Illuminati has arrived. It's good to see you. I hope you're feeling a little bit better now. I know that you were slightly improved today, but I haven't checked in a bit. Were you the one texting me? Hold on, let me see. Now there's a few people. Oh, you had a recording session, and you're hanging with Jerry. Oh, that sounds lovely. I'm so jealous. I miss Jerry. He was so sweet. I'm glad we finally had our moment, but of course you had to be out of the room for it. I don't know what it is. He only likes me when you leave. But as soon as you're back in the room, he runs for me again. Makes me sad. And I lost my place. It's okay, we're at the end of this chapter. And let me take a quick look and see how far the story actually goes. So far I'm seeing 13 chapters. These chapters are very short. 14, 15. Sounds like a lot. It's really not. Most of them are 2 pages. Okay, so 469. Oh, it's only 30 pages. This will probably still end up being a 2-parter. He snuggled next to your head. Oh, that's so adorable. He's so cute. You better see pictures. I will forgive text right now, so long as they are pictures of Jerry or other people's pets. Actually, if any of you that have my number, I want to see your pets. Happily. Okay, I will find my place again. Oh, wait, before I read, quick shout out to Power Rob. He does a bunch of synthwave music, and he also mods systems. So I have, where is it? I don't know where it is, but I have a 2DS that he modded, and we're playing Pokemon Crystal Clear, I think it's called, which is a modded version of Pokemon Crystal that's kind of open world. It's amazing. So if you need mods, go to him. Wasted Penguin is now following. Oh, awesome. Thank you. And I love that name. And thank you, Crystalline. I don't know if he actually streams. Sometimes he'll put stuff up. He should stream. I would like to put my foot down on the floor. He should stream so that we can go bother him. Alright, now I'm actually going to read. I'm sorry. I've been prattling for a few minutes here because I love my friends so much. All of you. I love all of you. I will find this in a moment. Okay, here we go. We were at the very, very end of this chapter. I don't know how I lost my place, but thank you for sticking around. So indeed she had, and she and I talked a great deal, and very animated she was. And the remainder of the evening passed without any reoccurrence of what I called her infatuations. I'm going to get bit by a mouse tonight. If I die, it was because of an infected wound from a mouse. I will definitely take a look at that after this stream. Thank you. I mean her crazy talk and looks, which embarrassed and even frightened me. But there occurred that night an event which gave my thoughts quite a new turn, and seemed to startle even Carmilla's languid nature into momentary energy. Okay, we're gonna take my feet up off the floor. I hear this thing moving, and it makes me uncomfortable. And yes, I am wearing pants under my dress. That's because it's very, very cold down here. So, sorry if that ruins the image, but it's very cold tonight. When I'm in my new place, I won't. It'll be thigh highs the whole time. The return of the plague. Absolutely. Plague of mice. My goodness. What is this thing doing? I don't know if the mic is picking this up, but it's ridiculous and it's very distracting. I almost want to plug my ears just so that I can read without being distracted. And where is my cat? He has one job. Anyway, chapter 6. A very strange agony. Yeah, I'm going through that now. Oh. Those who know me know what I'm talking about. We got into the drawing room and had sat down to our coffee and chocolate. God, I'm so jealous. Although Carmilla did not take any, she seemed quite herself again, and Madame and Mademoiselle de la Fonte joined us and made a little card party, in the course of which Papa came in for what he called his dish of tea. When the game was over, he sat down beside Carmilla on the sofa and asked her a little anxiously whether she had heard from her mother since her arrival. She answered, no. He then asked whether she knew where a letter would reach her at present. I cannot tell, she answered ambiguously. But I have been thinking of leaving you. You have been already too hospitable and too kind to me. I have given you an infinity of trouble, and I should wish to take a carriage tomorrow and post in pursuit of her. I know where I shall ultimately find her, although I dare not yet tell you. It's because she's been sucking everybody dry. That's the truth. But you must not dream of any such thing, exclaimed my father. To my great relief, We can't afford to lose you so, and I won't consent to your leaving us, except under the care of your mother, who was so good as to consent to your remaining with us until she should herself return. I should be quite happy if I knew that you heard from her, but this evening the accounts of the progress of the mysterious disease that has invaded our neighborhood grown even more alarming, and my beautiful guest, I do feel the responsibility, unaided by advice from your mother, very much. But I shall do my best, and one thing is certain, that you must not think of leaving us without her distinct direction to that effect. We would suffer too much in parting from you to consent to it easily. Oh, that's so sweet. That's such a nice way of saying no. Thank you, sir, 1,000 times for your hospitality, she answered, smiling bashfully. You have all been too kind to me. I have seldom been so happy in all my life before as in your chateau, under your care, and in the society of your dear daughter. Yeah, we know how much she likes his daughter. Seriously, though, they're definitely lovers. So he gallantly, and in his old-fashioned way, kissed her hand, smiling and pleased at her little speech. I accompanied Carmilla as usual to her room, and sat and chatted with her while she was preparing for bed. Yeah, you sat and chatted with her, okay. Do you think, I said at length, that you will ever confide fully in me? She turned round smiling, but made no answer, only continued to smile on me. You won't answer that, I said. You can't answer pleasantly. I ought not to have asked you. You were quite right to ask me that, or anything. You do not know how dear you are to me. Pretty sure she knows. Or could you not think any confidence too great to look for? But I am under vows. No nun half so awfully, and I dare not tell my story yet, even to you. The time is very near when you shall know everything. You will think me cruel, very selfish, but love is always selfish. The more ardent, the more selfish. How jealous I am, you cannot know. You must come with me, loving me to death, or else hate me and still come with me, and hating me through death and after. There is no such word as indifference in my apathetic nature. Now, Carmilla, you are going to talk your wild nonsense again, I said hastily. Not I, silly little fool as I am, and full of whims and fancies. For your sake, I'll talk like a sage. Were you ever at a ball? No? How do you run on? What is it like? How charming it must be. I almost forget. It is years ago. I laughed. You are not so old. Your first ball can hardly be forgotten yet. I remember everything about it, with an effort. I see it all, as divers see what is going on above them, through a medium, dense, rippling, but transparent. There occurred that night what has confused the picture and made its colors faint. I was all but assassinated in my bed, wounded here. She touched her breast, and never was the same since. You were near dying? Yes, very. A cruel love, strange love, that would have taken my life. Love will have its sacrifices. Sorry, I'm still distracted by the noise over there. And no sacrifice without blood. Let us go to sleep now. I feel so lazy. How can I get up just now and lock my door? So, is she asking her to join her in the bed? She was lying with her tiny hands buried in her rich, wavy hair under her cheeks, her little head upon the pillow, and her glittering eyes followed me wherever I moved, with a kind of shy smile that I could not decipher. I bid her good... lame. I bid her good night and crept from the room with an uncomfortable sensation. Come on. Stay. She definitely wanted you to stay. I often wondered whether our pretty guest ever said her prayers. I certainly had never seen her upon her knees yet. In the morning, she never came down until long after our family prayers were over, and at night she never left the drawing room to attend our brief evening prayers in the hall. I don't blame her, honestly. If it had not been that it had casually come out in one of our careless talks that she had been baptized, I should have doubted her being a Christian. Religion was a subject on which I had never heard her speak a word. If I had known the world better, this particular neglect or apathy would have so much surprised me. The precautions of nervous people are infectious, and the persons of a like temperament are pretty sure, after a time, to imitate them. I had adopted Carmilla's habit of locking her bedroom door, having taken into my head all her whimsical alarms about midnight invaders and prowling assassins. I had also adopted her precaution of making a brief search through her room to satisfy herself that no lurking assassin or robber was ensconced. Giggity. Yes, that's right. Giggity. Wouldn't you feel so much safer if you stayed in the same room? There's an idea. Don't sleep alone. These wise measures taken, I got into my bed and fell asleep. A light was burning in my room. This was an old habit of very early date, and which nothing could have tempted me to dispense with. Thus fortified, I might take my rest in peace. But dreams come through stone walls, light up dark rooms or darken light ones, and their persons make their exits and their entrances as they please, and laugh at locksmiths. Same room, same bed? Of course. Doesn't it get cold in a castle? You need to take warmth of another person's body, wouldn't you? It only makes sense. Why would you sleep alone, in a cold bed, in a cold castle? So large. I'm assuming there's so many rooms and that they're so big. How could one be comfortable enough without company? At least that's my thought on it. Especially if somebody has insomnia like me. I need someone to sleep with. I had a dream that night that was the beginning of a very strange agony. It does make a lot of sense. Thank you, Cheesecake. See, you know the logic. I cannot call it a nightmare, for I was quite conscious of being asleep. That is still a nightmare. I've had a few of those where I knew I was asleep, but it was still a nightmare because it was still terrible. But I was equally conscious of being in my room and lying in bed, precisely as I actually was. I saw, or fancy I saw, the room and its furniture just as I had seen it last, except that it was very dark, and I saw something moving round the foot of the bed, which at first I could not accurately distinguish, but I soon saw that it was a sooty black animal that resembled a monstrous cat. I'm still wondering where my cat is. It appeared to me about 4 or 5 feet long, for it measured fully the length of the hearthrug, as it passed over it, and it continued. What? It continued toing and froing. I've never seen it written like that. That is okay. Toing and froing, with the lithe, sinister restlessness of a beast in a cage. I could not cry out, although, as you may suppose, I was terrified. Its pace was growing faster, and the room rapidly darker and darker, and oh my god, mouse, can you please shut the fuck up? And at length, so dark that I could no longer see anything of it but its eyes. I need something to throw at the wall. I felt it spring lightly on the bed. The two broad eyes approached my face, and suddenly I felt a stinging pain, as if two large needles darted an inch or two apart, deep into my breast. Ouch. I waked with a scream. The room was lighted by a candle that burned there all through the night, and I saw a female figure standing at the foot of the bed. A little at the right side, it was a dark, loose dress, and its hair was down and covered its shoulders. A block of stone could not have been more still. There was not the slightest stir of respiration. As I stared at it, the figure appeared to have changed its place, and is now nearer the door, then close to it. The door opened, and it passed out. I mean, you could have asked. Who the fuck is that? I was now relieved, and able to breathe and move. My first thought was that Carmilla had been playing me a trick, and that I had forgotten to secure my door. I hastened to it, and found it was locked as usual on the inside. I was afraid to open it. I was horrified. I sprang into my bed, and covered my head up with the bedclothes, and lay more dead than alive till morning. I mean, that's one way to get yourself to fall asleep. Chapter 7. Descending. I see my drink. Oh dear, I'm out. I think I'm completely out of my blue drink. I do have a soda here, but it's not going to be as relieving on my throat. But we'll just have to make it work. It'll have to do for now. It would be vain my attempting to tell you the horror with which, even now, I recall the occurrence of that night. It was no such transitory terror as a dream leaves behind it. It seemed to deepen by time, and communicated itself to the room and the very furniture that had encompassed the apparition. I know I have to constantly take sips, I'm sorry. I could not bear the next day to be alone for a moment. I should have told Papa, but for two opposite reasons. At one time, I thought he would laugh at my story, and I could not bear its being treated as a jest. And at another, I thought he might fancy that I had been that I had been attacked by the mysterious complaint which had invaded our neighborhood. I had myself no misgiving of the kind, as he had rather an invalid for some time. I was afraid of alarming him. It was comfortable enough with my good-natured companions, Madame Perrodon, and the vivacious Mademoiselle Lafante, or Lavante. I'm not sure. I'm just saying it that way. They both perceived that I was out of spirits and nervous, and at length I told them what lay so heavy at my heart. Mademoiselle laughed, and I fancied that Madame Perrodon looked anxious. By the by, said Mademoiselle, laughing, the long lime tree walk behind Carmilla's bedroom window is haunted. Nonsense, exclaimed Madame. who probably thought the theme rather inopportune. And who tells that story, my dear? Martin says that he came up twice, when the old yard gate was being repaired before sunrise, and twice saw the same female figure walking down the lime tree avenue. So he well might, as long as there are cows to milk in the river fields, said Madame. I dare say, but Martin chooses to be frightened, and never did I see fool more frightened. You must not say a word about it to Carmilla, because she can see down that walk from her room window, I interposed, and she is, if possible, a greater coward than I. That's kind of mean, but probably true. Or she just plays a good coward. Carmilla came down rather later than usual that day. I was so frightened last night, she said, so soon as we're together. And I am sure I should have seen something dreadful if it had not been for that charm I bought from the poor little hunchback whom I called such hard names. I had a dream of something black coming round my bed, and I awoke in a perfect horror. And I really thought, for some seconds, I saw a dark figure near the chimney-piece. But I felt under my pillow for my charm, and the moment my fingers touched it, the figure disappeared. And I felt quite certain, only that I had it by me, that something frightful would have made its appearance, and perhaps throttled me, as it did those poor people we heard of. There's a lot of people texting me tonight, my goodness. Why does my phone always blow up when I'm streaming? It's every time. I mean, I do appreciate the love, but my goodness. Well, listen to me, I began, and recounted my adventure, at the recital of which she appeared horrified. And had you the charm near you? She asked earnestly. No. I had dropped it into a china vase in the drawing room, but I shall certainly take it with me tonight, as you have so much faith in it. At this distance of time I cannot tell you, or even understand, how I overcame my horrors so effectually as to lie alone in my room that night. I know, right? Take the opportunity. You got a beautiful woman that clearly loves you. Fucking sleep in the same bed, man. I remember distinctly that I pinned the charm to my pillow. I fell asleep almost immediately, and slept even more soundly than usual that night. Next night I passed as well. My sleep was delightfully deep and dreamless. I mean, that is delightful, but I do like having dreams. It's the nerves. I guess so. Where was I? But I wakened with a sense of lassitude and melancholy, which, however, did not exceed a degree that was almost luxurious. Well, I told you so, said Carmilla, when I described my quiet sleep. I had such delightful sleep myself last night. I pinned the charm to the breast of my nightdress. My goodness. It was too far away the night before. I am quite sure it was all fancy except the dreams. I used to think that evil spirits made dreams, but our doctor told me it is no such thing, only a fever passing by, or some other malady. As they often do, he said, knocks at the door, and not being able to get in, passes on with that alarm. I guess so. And what do you think the charm is? Said I. It has been fumigated or immersed in some drug. and is an antidote against the malaria," she answered. "Then it acts only on the body?" "Certainly. You don't suppose that evil spirits are frightened by bits of ribbon, or the perfumes of a druggist's shop. No, these complaints wandering in the air begin by trying the nerves, and so infect the brain, but before they can seize upon you, the antidote repels them. That, I am sure, is what the charm has done for us. It is nothing magical, it is simply natural." Look at you with your logic. You still should have used the opportunity to get someone else to sleep in bed. Just a thought. I should have been happier if I could have quite agreed with Carmilla. But I did my best, and the impression was a little losing its force. For some nights I slept profoundly, but still every morning I felt the same lassitude, and melancholy weighed upon me all day. I felt myself a changed girl. A strange melancholy was stealing over me, a melancholy that I could not have interrupted. Dim thoughts of death began to open, and an idea that I was slowly sinking too gentle and somehow not unwelcome took possession of me. If it was sad, the tone of mind which this induced was also sweet. Whatever it might be, my soul acquiesced in it. I would not admit that I was ill. I would not consent to tell my papa or have the doctor sent for. Carmilla became more devoted to me than ever, and her strange paroxysm of languid adoration more frequent. Well, yes, it grows with time. She used to gloat on me with interesting ardor. The more of my strength and spirits waned. This always shocked me like a momentary glare of insanity. Without knowing it, I was now in a pretty advanced stage of the strangest illness under which mortal ever suffered. Okay, no, that's actually how it's written. Okay. There was an unaccountable fascination in its earlier symptoms that more than reconciled me to incapacitating effect of that stage of the malady. This fascination increased for a time, until it reached a certain point, when gradually a sense of the horrible mingled itself with it, deepening, as you shall hear, until it discolored and perverted the whole state of my life. Should have slept with your friend. Just saying. Sleep with your friends. I'm talking to her specifically. Not in general. The first change I experienced was rather agreeable. It was very near the turning point from which began the descent. Certain vague and strange sensations visited me in my sleep. The prevailing one was of that pleasant, peculiar cold thrill which we feel in bathing, when we move against the current of a river. Oh, that's right, because they did not have wonderful heated water like we do. This was soon accompanied by dreams that seemed interminable, and were so vague that I could never recollect their scenery in persons, or any one connected portion of their action, but they left an awful impression and a sense of exhaustion, as if I had paused through a long period of great mental exertion and danger. Oh, there's people. Bob Ross! Yes. Many Bob Ross sorts of scenes here. Just woke up, all I heard was the solid life advice of sleep with your friends. In general. I did not say in general. No. Don't. Oh my goodness. Please don't clip that. Do not clip that. What did I do to myself? I should hide my face in shame now. Oh no. No. Why didn't... Alright. Back to reading. That's what we're doing here. After all these dreams, there remained unwaking remembrance, I'm not looking at chat, of having been in a place very nearly dark, and of having spoken to people whom I could not see, and especially of one clear voice of a female's, very deep, that spoke as if at a distance, slowly, and producing always the same sensation of indescribable solemnity and fear. Sometimes there came a sensation as if a hand was drawn softly along my cheek and neck. Sometimes it was as if warm lips kissed me, and longer and more lovingly as they reached my throat. Nice. But there the caress fixed itself. My heart beat faster. My breathing rose and fell rapidly, and full drawn a sobbing that rose into a sense of strangulation, supervented, and turned into a dreadful convulsion, in which my senses left me, and I became unconscious. That is some rough play there. Quality content, how dare you. No, don't do this to me. You know what? Do what you need to do as long as you use protection, okay? Add that to my advice, at least. It was now 3 weeks since the commencement of this unaccountable state. My sufferings had, during the last week, told upon my appearance. I had grown pale, my eyes were dilated and darkened underneath. Thank you. Okay, now it's acceptable. I lost my place. I had long felt began to display itself in my countenance. I hope I didn't skip the rest of that sentence. My father asked me often whether I was ill, but in an absentity. I said that wrong, but whatever. Which now seems to me unaccountable. I persisted in assuring him that I was quite well. In a sense, this was true. I had no pain. I could complain of no bodily derangement. My complaint seemed to be one of the imagination, or the nerves, and horrible as my sufferings were, I kept them, with a morbid reserve, very nearly to myself. It could not be that terrible complaint which the peasants called, for I had now been suffering for 3 weeks, and they were seldom ill for more than 3 days, when death put an end to their miseries. Well, there might be a reason why you're not dead yet. Carmilla complained of dreams and feverish sensations, but by no means of so alarming a kind as mine. I say that mine were extremely alarming. Had I been capable of comprehending my condition, I would have invoked aid and advice on my knees. The narcotic of an unsuspected influence was acting upon me, and my perceptions were benumbed. I am going to tell you now of a dream that led immediately to an odd discovery. One night, instead of the voice I was accustomed to hear in the dark, I heard one sweet and tender, and at the same time terrible. I like that in a man? Absolutely. You and me both. Sorry, cup holder's a little weird. I don't want to knock over my glass. Which said, Your mother warns you to beware of the assassin." And at the same time, a light unexpectedly sprang up, and I saw Carmilla standing near the foot of my bed, and her white nightdress bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood. I wakened with a shriek, possessed with one idea that Carmilla was being murdered. I remembered springing from my bed, and my next recollection is that of standing in the lobby crying for help. Madame and Mademoiselle came scurrying out of their rooms in an alarm. A lamp burned always in the lobby, and seeing me, they soon learned the cause of my terror. I insisted on our knocking at Carmilla's door. Our knocking was unanswered. It soon became a pounding and an uproar. We shrieked her name, but all was in vain. We all grew frightened, for the door was locked. We hurried back, in panic, to my room. There we rang the bell long and furiously. If my father's room had been that side of the house, we would have called him up at once to our aid. But alas, he was quite out of hearing, and to reach him involved an exertion for which we none of us had courage. Who's texting me? Servants, however, soon came running up the stairs. I had got on my dressing gown and slippers meanwhile, and my companions were already similarly furnished. Recognizing the voices of the servants on the lobby, we sallied out together, and having renewed as fruitlessly our summons at Carmilla's door, I ordered the men to force the lock. They did so, and we stood holding our lights aloft in the doorway, and so stared into the room. We called her by name, but there was still no reply. We looked around the room. Everything was undisturbed. It was exactly in the state in which I had left it on bidding her good night. But Carmilla was gone. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let me wipe my nose real quick. Excuse me. It's very cold down here, and I don't know why. Sorry. It's like right next to the mic, too. Pleasant. Great ASMR right here. I think my allergies are acting up, too. That would explain why my voice is all scratchy. The poor thing. It's not used to being used. Right. I think that mouse finally fucked off. I haven't heard it in a little while, which is nice. Adjust the corset. Make sure this is closed. Thank you. So chapter 8. The search. Yes, so Carmilla is gone. Surprise! Not really. At sight of the room, perfectly undisturbed except for our violent entrance, we began to cool a little, and soon recovered our senses sufficiently to dismiss the men. Why? You need them to search. It had struck Mademoiselle that possibly Carmilla had been wakened by the uproar at her door, and in her first panic had jumped from her bed and hid herself in a press, or behind a curtain, from which she could not, of course, emerge until the majordomo and his myrmidons, I don't know what those are, had withdrawn. The dudes have withdrawn. We now recommenced our search and began to call her name again. Stop texting me, unless it's pet pictures. Better be pet pictures. It was all to no purpose. Our perplexity and agitation increased. We examined the windows, but they were secured. I implored of Carmilla that if she had concealed herself, to play this cruel trick no longer, to come out and to end our anxieties. It was all useless. I was by this time convinced that she was not in the room, nor in the dressing room, the door of which was still locked on its side. She could not have passed it. I was utterly puzzled. Had Carmilla discovered one of those secret passages which the housekeeper said were known to exist in the Schloss? Although the tradition of their exact situation had been lost, a little time would, no doubt, explain all utterly perplexed us. For the present, we were. It was past 4 o'clock, and I preferred passing the remaining hours of darkness in Madame's room. Daylight brought no solution of the difficulty. The whole household, with my father at its head, was in a state of agitation. Next morning, every part of the chateau was searched. The grounds were explored. No trace of the missing lady could be discovered. The stream was about to be dragged. My father was in distraction. What a tale to have to tell the poor girl's mother on her return. I, too, was almost beside myself, though my grief was quite of a different kind. Yeah, that's your lover that you refuse to get a little closer to. The morning was passed in alarm and excitement. It was now 1 o'clock, and still no tidings. I ran up to Carmilla's room and found her standing at her dressing table. I was astounded. I could not believe my eyes. She beckoned me to her with her pretty finger in silence. Her face expressed extreme fear. Yeah, but it seems like she's still managing to flirt with you just a bit. Just a little. Who doesn't flirt when they're scared? I ran to her in an ecstasy of joy. I kissed and embraced her again and again. Our friend's back. I ran to the bell and rang it vehemently to bring others to the spot who might at once relieve my father's anxiety. Dear Carmilla, what has become of you all this time? We have been in agonies of anxiety about you, I exclaimed. Where have you been? How did you come back? Last night has been a night of wonders, she said. For mercy's sake, explain all you can. It was past 2 last night, she said. When I went to sleep, as usual in my bed, with my doors locked, that of the dressing room, that opening upon the gallery. My sleep was uninterrupted and, so far as I know, dreamless. But I woke just now on the sofa in the dressing room there, and I found the door between the rooms open and the other door forced. How could all this have happened without my being wakened? It must have been accompanied with a great deal of noise. I am particularly easily awakened, and how could I have been carried out of my bed without my sleep having been interrupted? I whom the slightest stir startles. I am sensing a lie. By this time, Madame and Mademoiselle, my father, and a number of the servants were in the room. Carmilla was, of course, overwhelmed with inquiries, congratulations, and welcomes. She had but one story to tell, and seemed the least able of all the party to suggest any way of accounting for what had happened. Just say you fucking left, you know? My father took a turn up and down the room, thinking I saw Carmilla's eyes follow him for a moment with a sly, dark glance. When my father had sent the servants away, Mademoiselle having gone in search of a little bottle of valerian and savolatile? Or savolatile? I don't know. And there being no one now in the room with Carmilla except my father, Madame, and myself, he came to her thoughtfully, took her hand very kindly, led her to the sofa, and sat down beside her. Will you forgive me, my dear, if I risk a conjecture and ask a question? Who can have a better right? She said. Ask what you please, and I will tell you everything, but my story is simply one of bewilderment and darkness. I know absolutely nothing. Put any question you please, but you know, of course, the limitations Mamma has placed me under. Perfectly, my dear child. I need not approach the topics on which she desires our silence. Now the marvel of last night consists in your having been removed from your bed and your room without being wakened, and this removal having occurred apparently while the windows were still secured and the 2 doors locked upon the inside. I will tell you my theory and ask you a question. Carmilla was leaning on her hand dejectedly. Madame and I were listening breathlessly. Now my question is this. Have you ever been suspected of walking in your sleep? Never, since I was very young indeed. But you did walk in your sleep when you were young? Yes, I know I did. I have been told so often by my old nurse. My father smiled and nodded. Well, what has happened is this. You got up in your sleep, unlocked the door, not leaving the key as usual in the lock, but taking it out and locking it on the outside. You again took the key out and carried it away with you to some one of the 25 rooms on this floor, or perhaps upstairs or downstairs. There's so many rooms. And closets, so much heavy furniture, and such accumulations of lumber, that it would require a week to search this old house thoroughly. Do you see now what I mean? I do, but not all, she answered. And how, Papa, do you account for her finding herself on the sofa in the dressing-room, which we had searched so carefully? She came there after you had searched it, still in her sleep, and at last awoke spontaneously, and was as much surprised to find herself where she was as any one else. I wish all mysteries were as easily and innocently explained as yours, Carmilla, he said, laughing. And so we may congratulate ourselves on the certainty, and that the most natural explanation of the occurrence is one that involves no drugging, no tampering with locks, no burglars, or poisoners, or witches, nothing that needs alarm, Carmilla, or anyone else for our safety. I know I'm drinking. Should have got more of the blue stuff. It's much better on my throat. Soda is not great. Carmilla looking charmingly. Carmilla was looking charmingly. Nothing could be more beautiful than her tints. Her beauty was, I think, enhanced by that graceful languor that was peculiar to her. I think my father was silently contrasting her looks with mine, for he said, I wish my poor Lara was looking more like herself, and he sighed. So our alarms were happily ended, and Carmilla restored to her friends. Okay, so that is the main. We finally got the name of the main character, Lara, or Laura, right? Yeah, Laura. I don't think it was actually mentioned throughout the chapters. Maybe I just forgot. But she has a name, finally. Other than Dearest. Sorry, that's a soda can that's making all that noise. What are we at? 3 hours and 20? We are about roughly halfway through. And what's our time? 1:33. I think we can call this good for now, and I can finish the rest of this story on Saturday. This is actually a nice short story, so this will only take 2 streams to read, and then after that, so next Tuesday, I'm gonna be moving next week. Always a fun story. Yes, it is. Interesting name, by the way. So, like I was saying, after Saturday we'll finish Carmilla, and then Tuesday or Wednesday next week, because I am moving, so you're welcome. So I may not be able to stream on Tuesday. It may have to wait until Wednesday. I'll try to keep everyone updated, and here I'll put all my socials on here in case people do want to listen to my stories and whatnot. There we go. Put that there. So that has pretty much everything of importance on it. If you want to keep up to date. What was I saying? Oh, yes. The next story we will start next week, after we finish Carmilla, of course, this weekend, will be Dracula. Right to the classics. We'll read the rest in order in the book. So we're down here, and we'll go from the beginning to the end. And then I don't know what we're going to read after that. I think we still have plenty of time with this book. This is just the shortest of the stories in the book. And before Saturday, I will have some gaming streams. Dracula is delightful, if a bit on the dry side. Yes, but dry can be okay, just like a fine wine. I mean, personally, I like wine with a bit of sweetness to it. Not too sweet, though. It's got to be a mixture of both, a nice balance. But that kind of goes with how I read these stories, is I give a little bit of commentary. I talk to people in chat, so it's not quite as dry. I don't know. I try to make it relaxing, but a group experience, as you will. But as I was saying, Friday I do have another Diablo stream. I will be playing PC Diablo. If I have time, I'll try to do one on Thursday, but that's probably not going to happen because I'm doing a bunch of packing. But what we can do for now is we can find someone to raid, and then we will come back to the story on Saturday. But I appreciate everybody coming by, everybody that stopped in, said hello. I appreciate it very much. And I will look forward to reading you many, many more stories. And you have a good night too. I'm going to stop recording now.